The strings are invisible, but you feel the tug. A hand you cannot see guides your choices. A gentle tilt here, a smile there, a nudge that feels like your idea. That is the art, not force, not thunder. Just a soft pull until your feet move on their own. It often starts small. A harmless favor, the tiniest yes. Someone asks you to watch their bag for a moment, or to sign up just to hear more. Nothing binding, nothing dramatic. Later, when the request grows teeth, your mouth forms the word yes again out of habit. You already stepped forward. It is strangely natural to take one more step. If the small ask fails, the puppeteer flips the script. They come heavy and impossible, an ask so large that you recoil. Then, as if reading your mind, they back off with a modest request that suddenly feels reasonable. You breathe easier and say yes to the smaller thing, not noticing that it was the destination all along. The first rope you saw was never meant to hold you. The second one is, watch how they borrow the crowd. They say everyone is doing it. They say people like you already signed. They say your favorite person would approve. The room becomes a mirror that reflects only agreement, and your brain relaxes in the warm bath of belonging. Another tug. Notice the sudden shortage. Only a few left. Only tonight. Only for those who move now. Scarcity shrinks your world until the only door appears to be the one they are pointing at. Your breath quickens, and urgency starts making choices you would never make in daylight. They will study your rhythm and match it. Your words, your posture, your laugh reflected back at you like a lake on a windless night. You feel understood, and when someone understands you, trust slides open, easy as a drawer on smooth rails. Now they can label you. You are kind, you are loyal, you are a leader. And once a label settles on your skin, you try to live up to it, even when it leads you somewhere you never intended to go. They will set a first frame so your mind has a starting line. The initial number, the first description, the opening story. This becomes your anchor. Everything after is judged against that first touch. If the first story is expensive, the next price feels cheap. If the first story is terrible, the next feels safe. The string is not on your hand, it is on your sense of comparison. Sometimes they lean into fear, a jolt that tightens your chest, a threat that seems to point straight at you. Then comes the relief, problem solved, crisis averted, gratitude washing through you. And in that soft, grateful haze, a new agreement slides into place. You will barely remember making it. They will confuse you. Too many words, too fast, too tangled, until you nod just to escape the fog. Or they will exhaust you, keep you waiting, keep you guessing. A dance of attention and withdrawal that leaves you craving their next bright spark. The unpredictability makes your mind cling. The string tightens while you watch for the next glow. The darkest trick turns your own memory against you. You are told you misheard, you misunderstood, you overreacted, your feelings are wrong. Bit by bit, your certainty frays, and you begin to ask permission to trust your own eyes. When language itself becomes loaded, insider words, us versus them, pure versus tainted, you start living in their dictionary, where every term points to their truth. So, how do you slip the knot? First, name the feeling. If your chest is hot, if your jaw tightens, if the room feels smaller, pause. Say, this is pressure, this is speed, this is a trick of urgency. Ask for time. Step outside the scene and let your eyes adjust. Call someone who is not in the room and describe the facts in plain words. If your story feels messier when you remove their special language, you have found a string. Look for the moment you can say no without excuse. Not a fight, not a speech, just a quiet refusal. Puppeteers thrive on your momentum. Stillness is a blade. Stillness slices. Here is the secret no puppeteer wants you to learn. The strings were never in your body. They are expectations, habits, frames, fears. They pass through you, and you can let them fall. The most disturbing trick is how gentle it feels. The most powerful defense is noticing the gentleness and stepping away anyway. Puppets dance when they forget. People stop when they see the strings. They teach you to show teeth like it's a universal key. Unlock a room with a grin and the room relaxes. But here's the quiet truth people rarely say out loud. A smile can be a welcome and it can be a wire. Pull the right wire at the right time and a person will nod before their mind has even arrived. Picture this. You walk into a showroom. The floor is too bright. The air just cold enough to keep you alert. Someone glides over and smiles. A fraction too early, like they practiced it in the mirror. Great news, they say. I can squeeze you in today. You smile back because that is what polite people do. They hand you a bottle of water. They grin when you sip. They agree with your concerns before you finish the sentence. Totally understand, they say, still smiling. Just sign here to see the discounted options. Your mouth is still soft from your own smile, your head is nodding, and now your pen is moving. Here's the trap. A smile is not only an expression, it is a suggestion. Your brain registers smiling as safety, and safety smooths caution. Psychologically, we mirror what we see, and when we mirror calm, we feel calm. When we mirror warmth, we feel warmth. That felt warmth is real in your body, but its source can be staged, and that's where manipulation slips in. Yes becomes easier after you have already said a smaller yes. Reciprocity makes you feel like you owe something for that bottle of water, that laugh, that reassurance. Consistency pulls you forward. You smiled, you nodded, so the next agreeable step feels like keeping faith with yourself. The technique lives in the timing. Their smile arrives, your guard lowers. The ask slides into the space that opened. In group settings, the smile trap scales. Picture a seminar where everyone is coached into high energy. Music, clapping, wide grins across the front row. When the leader smiles, the room smiles. When the room smiles, you feel a tug to keep up. Social proof works like a tide. You do not notice the current until your feet lift from the floor. They shower you with compliments. They call you a natural. They insist you already belong. Love dressed as affirmation, but paced to keep you from stopping. This is not kindness. It is choreography. You can feel the difference in your body. A genuine smile gives you space to think. The manufactured one tries to fill every inch of that space before you do. A real smile feels like a porch light. The trap feels like a spotlight. One invites, the other directs. So, how do you slip the wire? Start with your face. Check if your smile belongs to you. Unclench your jaw. Let your lips fall to neutral and notice how the room changes. Breathe once, slow and visible. Ask a grounding question that introduces time. What happens if I decide tomorrow? The honest answer opens space. The trap tightens. Name the move gently. I appreciate your enthusiasm, and I am going to pause before I agree. Naming breaks the spell, because spells thrive in unspoken territory. If they rush, you do not match their pace. If they flatter, you do not feed on it. Not rude, but responsible. Not combative, just clear. Most importantly, remember that warmth and autonomy can coexist. You can be kind and still say no. You can enjoy someone's charm and still choose your own timing. You can smile and keep your hands off the pen. The test is simple. Does their smile give you more choice or less? If it shrinks your options, it is not a bridge, it is a leash. There is nothing wrong with a smile. What matters is what rides behind it. A true smile honors your pace, your questions, your air. The smile trap does the opposite. It rushes, it narrows, it nudges. Step back, see it, name it, and take your time. Because safety is not something a stranger grants you with perfect teeth. Safety is something you hold by noticing what your yes is worth. That is how a grin stays a welcome and never becomes a wire. And that is how you walk past the smile trap with your choices intact. The room goes still before a single word lands. A stare settles on you, steady, unblinking, just long enough to make your thoughts scramble for the exit. Your throat tightens. You straighten your posture. You agree to things you didn't plan to agree to. That's the authority glare at work, control without noise, pressure without a threat. A performance of certainty that makes compliance feel like the safest choice. Here's what it looks like up close. You're presenting a plan. The senior person across the table leans back, folds their hands, and watches. No frown, no critique. Just a calm, appraising gaze. Seconds stretch. Your mind starts stitching stories out of silence. I've missed something. They're unimpressed. I need to fix this. Suddenly, you rush to offer concessions you weren't asked for. You downplay your own idea. You promise more than you can deliver, just to make the air feel normal again. Psychologically, this move works because when someone projects calm dominance while withholding feedback, your brain tries to close the gap by volunteering obedience. You read the stillness as power and the silence as judgment, and you hurry to earn safety back. It's not the words that move you. It's the weight of being watched. The trick isn't limited to boardrooms. A supervisor pauses at your desk, eyes on your screen. A gate agent scans your face a beat longer than usual. A polished colleague holds your gaze while you talk, then says they'll circle back. Each moment is a micro stage, light on you, authority and shadow, tension rising without any sound. And because many of us were trained from early years to seek approval from the person in charge, the glare plugs right into habit. You smooth your edges, you rush to please. Now, the pivot, the antidote to the authority. Glare is not a counterglare. Dominance games double the fog. The antidote is clarity. Name the moment, ground yourself, and invite specifics. You don't need to accuse, argue, or match the energy. You ask the question that turns a stare into information. Which part feels risky to you? The timeline, the budget, or the scope? Where does this land for you on priority? What would make you confident in the next step? When you move from guessing what the silence means to inviting concrete detail, you break the spell. You're no longer performing for approval. You're co-creating decisions. There's a reason this shift works. Questions restore your autonomy. Specifics restore your footing. When you can locate the concern, you can address it. When you can't, you default to appeasement, which feels safe in the moment and costly later. This is the quiet trap of the glare. It hijacks your need for certainty and sells it back to you in exchange for compliance. Not clarity, but pressure. Not collaboration, but choreography. Flip it. Seek clarity. Ask for the thing you can actually engage. Try a simple script the next time the room goes heavy. First, breathe in a way you can feel. Slow, audible enough to anchor your own attention. Second, break the stare's momentum by glancing briefly at your notes or the agenda, then back. Third, put the decision on rails with a choice question. We can keep the original scope and extend the timeline, or maintain the timeline and phase the features. Which direction fits the priority you're solving for? You're not resisting the person. You're resisting the fog. You're showing the path out. And if you're the one tempted to use the glare, notice what it costs. You might win a nod today and lose the truth tomorrow. Teams trained by silence get good at performance, not at problem solving. Replace the stare with a standard. State your concern, your criterion, and your ask. It's less dramatic and far more trustworthy. This is the deeper pivot many leaders miss. Authority isn't the ability to make a room anxious. It's the capacity to make a room honest. That reframe turns power from theater into service. In the end, the authority glare is just a mirror that reflects back your fear of being judged. Look into it long enough, and you'll trade your voice for relief. Look past it, and you'll remember you always had another move: to slow down, to ask precisely, to choose clarity over pressure. Eyes will still find you. Rooms will still go quiet. But you won't be performing in their story anymore. You'll be writing your own. A tiny flicker at the edge of your vision, and something inside you loosens its grip. Not a word, not a touch, just a blink. Slow, deliberate, almost like a heartbeat you can see. Your eyes answer without asking permission, and in that silent echo, the door in your mind opens a crack. They call it the hypnotic blink. It is not the swirl of a pocket watch, not a booming voice that commands. It is quieter than that, more intimate. It is the way a person times their eyelids to your breath, finding your rhythm, then nudging it. One blink, a pause, a soft phrase poured into the space that pause creates. It lands while your brain is between frames, where critical thought is a little drowsy. Picture a negotiation. The room hums, the clock is relentless, the stakes are high. Across the table sits someone who never hurries and never fidgets. They hold your gaze just long enough to warm it. Then they blink slowly as they lower their voice. You mirror that blink without meaning to. And while your attention dips, they seed a suggestion. We both want to move forward. It sounds like agreement you came to by yourself. The next offer you make is strangely generous. The math did not change. Your guard did. The trick thrives on pacing and leading. People naturally match what they see. A manipulator starts by following your tempo, syncing their blinks to yours, letting your nervous system relax into the comfort of sameness. Then, like a metronome that drifts by a hair, they slow down. Your eyes lag, then match. With each slower shudder, there is a fraction longer of darkness. In that pocket, they phrase their message with soft certainty. You can let this go. You want to say yes. Your mind surfs the lull and mistakes it for a thought you made. It works in crowded places too. A salesperson steps into your space just enough to be present, nods along, mirrors your posture, then blinks soft as they pivot. I can take care of that for you. The words arrive as the world fades for a breath. Relief fills the gap before doubt returns. Maybe this is simpler. Maybe they are right. Maybe you should sign. There is nothing mystical here, just the body's reflex running faster than your conscious mind. Blink, reset, receive. Do it enough times and the rhythm becomes a path. The disturbing part is not the power of the trick, but its invisibility. You will not remember the blinks. You will remember that you started to feel safe, or tired, or ready to be done, and that their idea felt like your own. Defense begins with noticing cadence. Real attention has texture. It skips and wanders and returns. Hypnotic attention feels like being gently rocked. If someone's eyelids move like the tide while their voice softens on each drawdown, disrupt it. Shift your posture. Look at a corner of the room. Swallow. Take a deeper breath than you want to. Say something unexpected, even if it is small, like a comment about the chair. The rhythm breaks where novelty enters. Beware the double blink too. One brief flutter, then a longer close, paired with a precise word. It is a reset and a stamp. You will hear phrases like, trust me, listen, follow, okay spoken in that pocket, like a hand on your shoulder guiding you through a doorway you did not notice. Meet it with your own signal, a longer exhale, a glance to the side, a quiet question that requires detail rather than agreement. What, specifically, do you mean? Make them think. Thinking doesn't fit inside that blink. Parts of this can be used to calm, to soothe, to help someone breathe when panic rises. That is the older, kinder lineage of pacing and leading. But in cold hands, it becomes a lever that moves your choices. If you ever walk away from a conversation feeling strangely agreeable and unsure why, replay the moments where you blinked and they spoke. Watch for the sentence that slid in when your sight went dark. A tiny flicker, a borrowed rhythm, a thought that is not entirely yours. Keep your eyes when you offer your ears. Make your blinks belong to you. A red countdown clock shrinks in the corner of your screen, and your pulse starts keeping time with it. Somewhere inside, a small switch flips. The price looks better. The product feels rarer. Your hand moves faster. You are not just buying a thing, you are buying the last chance to own something others will miss. That tiny flip is the scarcity switch. And once you know what it is, you can feel it being pressed like a button on a machine. Scarcity does not make stuff valuable. It makes stuff urgent. Manipulators love urgency because it outruns reflection. They do not need to convince you it is the best. They only need to convince you it is almost gone. A velvet rope, a whisper of limited seats, an invite that expires at midnight. The story is always the same. Your access is threatened, so your desire surges to protect it. There is a classic scene that plays out in offices and marketplaces and relationships. Picture two jars on a table. One jar is full of cookies, the other has just a few. People reach for the scarce jar and swear those cookies taste better. The ingredients did not change. The scarcity switch did. It is not logic that moves you in that moment. It is a primal alarm. Take it now before someone else does. The darker version looks nothing like a store. It looks like an influencer who deletes a post after a few hours, so you start watching everything they release as if it might vanish. It looks like a controlling partner who withholds affection until you perform. So love itself feels like a dwindling resource you must hustle to earn. It looks like a guru who closes enrollment and then mysteriously reopens it for one final window, training you to chase the window rather than evaluate the offer. When access is staged as rare, your mind inflates value to match the fear of loss. Scarcity can be faked in 4 easy ways. Limit the time, so a clock does the talking. Limit the quantity, so your brain pictures other hands snatching what you want. Limit the access, so the gate feels like a prize. Limit the attention, so getting noticed becomes the product. None of this requires quality. It requires optics. A half-empty theater can feel like a hot ticket, with a well-placed sign that says almost sold out. A mediocre idea can feel like a secret if only a select few are allowed inside. What makes this so effective is not greed, it is protection. Your mind hates losing more than it loves winning. Restrict something, and your inner rebel wants it back. Frame it as forbidden, and desire blooms like a bruise. That is the scarcity switch humming along. Protect what might be taken, grab what might disappear, ignore the long term because the short term is on fire. So, how do you keep your hand off the trigger someone else installed? Start by naming it out loud. Say, this is a timer talking, not value. Ask yourself, if this were everywhere tomorrow, would I still want it? Replace the missing piece with information. What is the offer? What are the terms? What happens if I wait? If the answers are fog, the scarcity is probably staged. Walk away and watch how your urge deflates when the clock is gone. Decide your own rules in advance, like I do not buy under pressure, or I will sleep on anything that expires tonight. Pre-commitment beats panic. Notice too that real scarcity feels different. When a doctor has limited appointments because they spend real time with patients, the limit has reasons. When a handmade object is rare because a craftsperson only has 2 hands, the limit has integrity. Manipulation hides the reason and shouts the limit. Integrity shows the reason and barely mentions the limit. The most disturbing part is how small the move is. A word here, a timer there, a door that appears to be closing. But the power is yours once you can see the finger reaching for your switch. If urgency is honest, you can engage on your terms. If urgency is cooked, you can smile, step back, and let the moment pass like a wave that wanted to knock you down. When you own your pace, the scarcity switch stays yours to flip, not theirs. It starts with a nod, a harmless nod. A stranger smiles, offers a friendly question, and you agree without thinking. By the time you notice the pattern, you are already halfway up a staircase you never meant to climb. This is the yes ladder, a disturbingly elegant trick for steering a mind. It does not shove, it glides. It begins with a tiny ask that feels safe, almost silly to refuse. Agreeing warms your brain, softens your guard, and marks a path. Another small ask follows, then another. Each yes welds the next rung in place. By the time the bigger request appears, your mouth is already shaped around the word that put you there. Picture a clipboard at a street corner. Someone asks if you care about clean parks. You say yes. Do you support families? Yes. Would you like to help with a small pledge today? Your hand is already reaching for your wallet. The magic is not the pitch. It is the sequence. Each answer trains your identity to match your actions. I am a person who says yes. I am helpful. I am consistent. Turning around would mean admitting a change. Humans loathe that feeling, so we keep climbing. Salespeople use it with soft, certain rhythms. Do you like saving money? Yes. You prefer safer options, right? Yes. Then the premium package makes sense, does it not? Yes. Each step is crafted to be nearly undeniable, a set of warm stones across a cold river. Even when the far bank is not where you want it to go, it feels natural to keep stepping. Cult recruiters polish the ladder until it shines. They begin with community and belonging. You enjoy thoughtful conversation, yes? You believe in growth, yes? You want to meet like-minded people, yes? Then come to a small gathering, no pressure. Once inside, the requests escalate in gentle shades. Share your story, skip a weekend, donate a little, sever a tie. The ladder never looks like a trap until you glance down and feel the drop beneath you. Online, the yes ladder hides inside checkboxes and prompts. Accept cookies, turn on notifications, try a free trial, share your contacts to find friends. Each yes moves you from visitor to product. Dark patterns nudge the path. Buttons glow for agreement. Decline is gray, small, and awkward. The design whispers, take the easy step, just one more. Interrogators and hustlers add urgency. They pair the ladder with a ticking clock, because rushing blurs resistance. Say yes now to hold your spot. Just confirm this detail. Sign here to lock in your savings. Fear tightens the grip. The mind takes the quick route and calls it a choice. The trick works because the brain loves harmony. When our words, actions, and self-image align, we feel calm. The yes ladder exploits that need. It turns consistency into a leash. The first tether is silk. The last one is steel. So, how do you step off? You do not need a speech. You need a pause. Silence breaks the rhythm. Ask a genuine question that is not on their script. What happens if I say no and we still get along? What is the smallest version of this commitment? Why does this decision need to be made right now? Watch how their face reacts to friction. Honest people welcome clarity. Manipulators push speed. Give yourself a rule. I do not decide under pressure. I do not buy at the first meeting. I do not change my boundaries because I said yes to something small. A rule creates a different ladder. A no ladder built on your values. Each no anchors your footing. No to the rush. No to guilt. No to borrowed urgency. And sometimes, no to the third question in a row, even if it is easy. That's just to remind yourself, your voice belongs to you. If you struggle to say the word, try softer edges that still end the climb. Not today. I need time to think. Send it in writing. I am not the right person. Then stop. Do not explain your no to someone who is stacking more rungs. Explanations become new handles for them to grab. Remember that a real choice feels spacious. You have time to consider. Alternatives are offered without shame. Questions expand your understanding rather than shrink it to a single shining option. If the path narrows to one stepping stone, it is probably not a path. It is a ladder, and someone else is setting it against a wall that serves them. A nod is innocent. A yes is human. The danger is not in agreement. It is in momentum. When the next question comes, find your pause. Feel for the ground under your feet. Then decide which direction you want to walk and say the word that keeps you there. A single word can tilt a room, not a speech, not a paragraph, just the first word tossed into the air like a coin, and suddenly heads or tails decides the mood, the meaning, the map you follow without realizing you chose it. Call this the first word win. In arguments, the first person who names the situation often names the terms. Start with problem, and everyone hunts for blame. Start with puzzle, and the same people lean in to solve. Say obviously, and you turn ideas into obedience. Say maybe, and you invite oxygen. Picture a manager opening a meeting with clearly we're behind. Shoulders sink. Anxiety spikes. The room trips over proof that everyone has failed. Change the first word to curious. Now the brain gets permission to explore. Curious what's been slowing us down and what's in our control. The facts have not changed. The frame has. Or think about a disagreement at home. One partner starts with, "You always." That first word pulls the past in like a subpoena and drags identity into the dock. Replace it with lately. Suddenly it is a pattern, not a personality. There is daylight for change. A skilled negotiator strolls in and calmly says, "Imagine a number that feels fair." That single imagine hijacks your attention. You see it. Your mind starts measuring reality against a picture they just painted. In sales, the first word can be because, and even a flimsy reason feels sturdier once that bridge appears. Psychologically, this works because the first label acts like a frame. It primes what you notice and what you ignore, and the rest of the conversation slides along that track. Here is the unsettling part. If you do not pick the first word, your nervous system often adopts the first one it hears. We mirror, we match. Our sense-making is lazy in the name of efficiency. Your colleague says threat, and your body believes it. A headline says shocking, and your heartbeat obliges. This is why propagandists fight to name things first. That first stamp becomes a filter that all later facts must squeeze through. The antidote is not to become a robot who refuses every label. It is to reclaim the first inch, to pause instead of pouncing. When someone leads with crisis, you can breathe and rename it. Let's call this a challenge we can segment. When a voice in your head begins, "I failed, try, I learned." When a teammate says, "The client is impossible," reply, "The situation is tight and we have options." You are not playing word games. You are choosing a frame that keeps you resourceful. It helps to keep a small pocket of first words ready. Curious, next, temporary, practice, options, together. These are doors, not dead ends. Use them like a pilot checking instruments. First word, set. It also helps to catch the weapons. Obviously, always, never, crisis, urgent. If those words come at you, do not swallow them whole. Ask for definition. Ask for evidence. Ask for a smaller slice of the truth. Try this in micro moments. A friend texts, "Emergency." Before your adrenaline sprints, reply, "What happened?" You just prevented their first word from becoming your state. Or you walk into a brainstorming session and say, "Experiment." People relax. Risk shrinks. More ideas survive the first minute. Conversational examples like these make the point real because you can feel your own mind shift as the word shifts. There is a quiet responsibility here. The first word is a steering wheel. Use it to guide, not to trap. If your goal is control, you might win the moment and lose the relationship. But if your goal is clarity, consent, and progress, your first word becomes a signal of safety. It lowers defenses. It raises participation. It chooses cooperation over coercion without ever announcing that choice. So, listen for that coin toss. Notice the very first word on your tongue and in your ear. Choose it like it matters, because it does. The first word writes the legend at the top of the map, and most people will walk wherever that legend points. Win the first word, and you do not just win the argument. You win what the argument is even about. A hand touches your shoulder, warm, steady, and then lets go. Your balance shifts. You catch yourself, but not before you've taken a step the other way. That step is the point. That's the anchoring drop. Here's how it works. First, someone fixes your mind to a heavy first impression. A price, a promise, a threat, a standard. That's the anchor. Then they release it, abruptly. The sudden relief makes the next suggestion feel safe, even generous. But the path that nudges you down is theirs, not yours. For example, a street fundraiser smiles and says, "Most people give 100. Your gut tightens. That's a lot." They pause, tilt their head, and soften. Honestly, even 10 helps. The anchor has been dropped. 10 now feels tiny beside the 100, and your hand is already in your pocket. The amount didn't change, your reference point did. Or picture a manager in a negotiation. They open with an impossible deadline and a sprawling scope. You push back. They sigh, then meet you halfway by dropping the deadline but keeping most of the scope. You feel heard. You feel relieved. You just agreed to the real goal hidden inside the impossible one. Psychologically, the first extreme sets the brain's reference point, and the sudden contrast narrows attention, generates relief, and creates momentum toward agreement. When that relief hits, we relax decision guards and accept the smaller ask, because it feels fair compared to the original anchor, not because it actually fits our standards or interests. The trick gets darker when the anchor is emotional. Someone starts a conversation by flooding you with affection, praise, or intensity. Then they go cold. You feel the drop as loss, not strategy. The next crumb of warmth feels like rescue, and you lean in. That cycle can train you to chase their baseline. The anchor wasn't a number, it was a state. So, how do you keep your footing? Name the anchor. Say out loud what just set your reference. That initial price is beyond our budget, so I'm going to evaluate based on what we actually need, not compared to that first number. Saying it resets the frame from theirs to yours. Not their reference, your criteria. Not the relief, the reality. Second, slow the moment. The drop is designed to make you decide during the exhale. Breathe anyway, but don't move. Ask for time. Repeat your standard. Appreciate the adjustment. I still want to review the scope because the deadline wasn't my only concern. Relief is not agreement. Relief is a feeling. Let it pass before you commit. Third, predefine your anchors before you ever walk in. Decide what fair looks like, what good looks like, what you'll accept, and what you won't. When you carry your own anchor, someone else's drop lands with less force. You can acknowledge the contrast without letting it steer you. Fourth, switch the comparison. When they say, "It's so much less than the original," you can say, "It's still more than the plan we actually need." Compare to your plan, not their frame. When they say, "This is such a small favor compared to the first ask," you can answer, "It's still a no compared to my boundary." Keep moving the spotlight back to the truth you chose. You'll also notice this tactic popping up in everyday conversations. A friend unloads a giant request, then immediately says, "Never mind, could you just help me for a minute?" A salesperson starts with their premium bundle, then shows you the basic package that still includes extras you didn't want. A partner sets a dramatic rule, then backs off to something that still stretches your comfort. The pattern is the same. Hook the mind, create relief, convert the relief into compliance. If you catch yourself thinking, "At least it's not as bad as the first thing," that's your cue. Swap the comparison. Ask, "Is it actually good for me?" If yes, great. If not, decline without guilt. You're not obligated to reward a tactic. The deeper skill is learning to feel the drop without letting it drag you. That means trusting your criteria under pressure and trusting that a moment of discomfort while you hold a boundary is cheaper than the long cost of a decision made in relief. It helps to remember that you can understand someone's position and still not move until it matches your standard. Psychologically, this kind of clarity creates safety for you. It lowers emotional noise and keeps your choices aligned with your values. Anchors will be thrown at you. Some will be harmless. Some will be deliberate. Notice them. Name them. Then choose your step on steady ground. That's how you stop the anchoring drop from deciding for you. It arrives wrapped in kindness, a soft little weight in your hand, and suddenly your mind is not your own. A sample of chocolate pressed into your palm, a bottle of water offered at the perfect moment, a bracelet tied on your wrist faster than you can say no. You did not ask. You did not pay. Yet a quiet clock begins to tick inside you, counting down to a yes you never planned to give. This is the reciprocity gift. Not a gift for you, but a gift from you, because the moment you accept it, a part of you stands up and salutes. You feel it in your chest, that small ache, I owe them. You do not say it aloud. You barely notice it, but your attention leans forward, your decisions soften, and a door inside you slides open. Think of a crowded street where a stranger smiles and slips a flower into your hand. It is harmless, sweet, a pretty thing. And then you turn to go, and they are suddenly there, hand out, eyes pleading, a silent question heavy between you. You did not agree to anything, but that does not matter. Your brain runs a shortcut older than money. They gave. You must return. Even a tiny coin will soothe the pressure. Even a promise will do. You are not buying the flower. You are buying peace from that invisible weight. Marketers know this. Recruiters know this. Manipulators know this like they know their own breath. They prime the moment by making the gift feel personal. Not just a free pen, but a free pen because you look like someone who appreciates good ink. Not just a discount, but a discount just for you today. The gift does the talking. It tells you they see you. It tells you they care. It tells your nervous system that this person is safe, even special, even deserving. And once you believe that, agreeing becomes the easy road. Here's the part that chills me. The debt inside you does not care about size. A tiny kindness can summon a giant yes. A cup of coffee can tilt a meeting. A ride from the airport can tilt a loyalty. A compliment whispered at the right time can tilt a conscience. Reciprocity is not math. It is gravity. Watch how it happens in the small frames. A neighbor helps carry your groceries and later asks for a favor that makes your stomach knot. A colleague brings you lunch and later nudges you to keep quiet about a mistake. A stranger online sends you a helpful template, then nudges you toward their link, their pitch, their plan. Your guard drops not because the move is logical, but because it is warm. The warmth blurs the lines. There is a reason this trick feels disturbing. It hijacks one of the best parts of being human. We are wired to return kindness. That is how families work, how communities survive, how trust compounds. Reciprocity makes civilization possible. And that is what makes it such a perfect lever for control. Pull the lever with a smile, and doors open that would never move for a threat. So, what can you do when the ribbon lands in your hand? First, name the feeling. Say it in your head. I am feeling the pull to give back. Just naming it drains some of its power. Second, separate the act from the ask. A gift is a gift whether or not you say yes to anything else. You can say thank you and still say no. Third, check the timing. If the ask follows the gift in the same breath, that is not kindness, that is choreography. Step back. Fourth, watch for personalization that feels too fast. When someone who barely knows you claims to totally get you, treat it like a stage light, not daylight. If you have already accepted something and the pressure is curling around you, try this line. Thank you for the gift, and I am going to pass on the offer. Sit in the silence that follows. It might feel like standing in the cold. Let it. That's the price of keeping your keys. None of this means you should refuse all kindness. It means you recognize when generosity is a glove worn over a handle. You can enjoy the chocolate and keep your voice. You can appreciate the water and keep your choice. You can love gifts without letting them lead you. The scariest tricks do not shout. They smile, and they hand you something small. When you feel that little clock start to tick, remember, your mind does not owe anyone a yes just because your hand said thank you. 1,000 hands start clapping, and your brain wants to clap along. That urge is not politeness. It is a lever. The social proof trap works by convincing you that the crowd already decided. So you might as well follow. It is not just the roar of a stadium. It is the way a restaurant seeds a tip jar with folded bills before the first customer arrives. It is the laugh track that tells you when to find something funny. It is the polite nods in a meeting that turn a bad idea into a foregone conclusion. Your attention is the prize. Your agreement is the jackpot. Picture a sidewalk performer who begins the day with an empty case. It looks unpopular, which makes you hesitate. Now, picture the same performer with a few notes and coins already inside. Suddenly, it feels safe to drop one more. We are herd animals with amazing brains, and that is a dangerous combination. When the brain senses a tribe, it downshifts from careful analysis into the warm glide of belonging. The trap springs the moment you trade thinking for fitting in. The more ambiguous the situation, the easier the trap closes. A confusing pitch, a complex product, a new technology, a crisis with too many moving parts. When you feel uncertain, the crowd feels like a compass. Marketers know this. Grifters know this. Political operatives know this. They stack the deck with fake reviews, rented crowds, astroturfed comments, and bot armies that inflate likes and shares until a lie looks like a trend. The signal is not truth. The signal is popularity. You are not supposed to notice the difference. Here is the twist that makes it disturbing. Even when you do notice, your body may still try to sync. Laughter spreads because lungs and faces mirror each other. Applause spreads because rhythm is contagious. Outrage spreads because emotion is sticky. The trap is somatic before it is logical. So by the time your prefrontal cortex wakes up with a skeptical thought, your hand is already halfway to the wallet. Your finger is hovering over the buy button. Your head is nodding in the room. There are subtle versions that feel harmless. Bestseller stickers slapped on mediocre books. Lines outside a nightclub stage for optics. Only a few left, messages that refresh every time you reload. And then, there are versions that steer whole lives. A family that enforces silence with a script of smiles. A workplace that promotes the loudest consensus. A movement that equates doubt with betrayal. The trap does not need chains. It needs momentum. Escaping it starts in the body. When you sense the pull, insert a breath that is long enough to break rhythm. Blink slowly, as if clearing sand from your eyes. Tilt your chin down a touch to reduce the urge to mirror faces around you. Tiny gestures, but they interrupt the trance. Then isolate the claim from the crowd. If no one else existed, would the offer still make sense? If the likes and stars vanished, would the evidence stand on its own? Swap the broadcast channel for a private signal. Call a friend who is not in the room. Look for a dissenting review written before the hype began. Ask for base rates. How often does something like this actually work out? Beware of words that lean on everyone and no one. Phrases like, people are saying, many experts agree, trusted by thousands, number one choice. Trusted by whom, and measured how, and compared to what. Drag the vague into the light. When numbers appear, translate them into costs you can feel. 5% failure can be every 20th person in a line of faces, and you might be the 20th. That image changes decisions. Most of all, remember that you can exit. The trap survives on urgency and proximity. Walk around the block, wait a day, close the tab. If the opportunity evaporates because you paused, it was bait. If your status in the room depends on instant agreement, it is not status worth keeping. Let the crowd be loud. Your mind can be quiet. And when you choose to clap, make sure the rhythm belongs to you. A ticking clock can drown out your better judgment. The sound is not always literal. It's the flashing timer at checkout. The salesperson's, "This price ends today." The message that says your account will be locked unless you act right now. Time pressure doesn't just hurry decisions, it shrinks them. When the window narrows, the mind stops exploring options and starts avoiding loss. Here's the move behind it. Urgency corners your attention. Instead of weighing pros and cons, you scan for the fastest way to make the feeling stop. That is why high-pressure pitches love countdowns and sudden deadlines. They don't need the best offer, they just need the shortest fuse. When the clock becomes the story, the choice becomes automatic. Picture a routine call from a support agent. Calm voice, helpful tone, then the pivot. "There's unusual activity on your account. We must verify within the next few minutes, or your funds will freeze." Your breath shortens. Your mind races. You reach for the quickest path to safety. That is the trap. A second example is more familiar and far less dramatic. A car lot. The finance manager leans in. "If you leave, the deal's gone. Right now is the sweet spot." The same nervous urgency flickers. Pressure like this is not information, it's leverage. Time pressure also shows up in group settings. A team faces a crisis, and a dominant voice insists, "There is no time to debate, agree now." The room stays silent, not because the idea is strong, but because the clock is loud. People go along not to align, but to escape the squeeze. That is the disturbing part of this tactic. It doesn't persuade, it compresses. Let's flip it. When someone forces the tempo, you reset the tempo. Slow the moment down with simple lines that buy back your thinking. Try, "I decide after I read it in writing," or "If it's good now, it will still be good tomorrow," or even, "Pause, I want a moment without the timer." The words matter less than the pause they create. As the seconds widen, options return, questions reappear. What am I agreeing to? What am I giving up? What happens if I walk away? Another practical move is to replace their clock with your checklist. Ask for the details. Ask who benefits if you hurry. Ask what safeguards are stripped away by the deadline. Real choices stand up to daylight and a second look. Fragile ones hide behind speed. You can also pre-commit to your own rule. No big decision without one night of sleep. It sounds small, but it flips the power. Sleep slows the body's threat response, and it lets long-term thinking speak up. If someone refuses to honor that boundary, you have your answer. They were never offering a choice. They were running a script. Watch for signals that the clock is the product. Vague consequences with precise deadlines. Secrecy framed as security. Interruption whenever you start to think aloud. Claims that every second counts, but no clear explanation of why. In those moments, name the tactic out loud. "This feels rushed. If it's legitimate, it can wait while I verify." Naming breaks the spell. It reminds everyone that time is part of consent. If you lead others, be careful with urgency inside your team. Urgent tone without honest context trains people to obey the clock instead of understanding the goal. Better to say, "We have limited time, so here's what matters most, and here's what we won't rush." That builds trust, not panic. It also keeps speed from becoming a habit that erodes judgment. The core truth is simple. Pressure isn't neutral. It pushes you toward the option that ends pressure fastest, not the one that serves you best. When someone sets a tiny window, they are not making you safer or smarter. They are making you smaller. You can step out of that frame. Take back 1 minute, then 5, then the night. If the choice is sound, it will still be sound when the clock is quiet. And if it vanishes the moment you stop the rush, it was never worth your time. They do not begin by locking doors. They start by moving furniture inside your life. A small shift here, a gentle nudge there, until the room feels the same, but every path now leads to them. That is the isolation shift. It looks like care. It feels like focus. It works because it reassigns your attention, one thread at a time, until the only loom left is theirs. First, the horizon tightens. Your calendar changes shape without a fight. Calls with old friends slip because you are just exhausted. Texts are answered later, then not at all, because you are being present. The places you used to go become inconvenient. The shows you loved feel frivolous. You are invited to spend more time together, and it does not sound like confinement, it sounds like commitment. Slowly, your world stops being a city and becomes a hallway. Then, the signal-to-noise ratio gets rigged. They curate what you read, what you watch, what you talk about. And they do it under the banner of helping you improve. They flood you with their interpretation first, so that any new idea arrives pre-labeled as safe or suspicious. They repeat a few simple stories until they feel like facts. We understand you, they never did. We are honest, they manipulate. We are different, they are ordinary. When choices get smaller, certainty gets bigger. Next comes the emotional rewrite. Every person who once grounded you is reframed as a source of stress. An attentive friend becomes too negative. A protective sibling is jealous. A mentor with concerns is controlling. The narrative is elegant. They alone see your potential, and everyone else is holding you back. The promise is specialness, and the price is isolation paid in quiet installments. You do not notice the cost, because every payment comes with a compliment. Once you are narrowed, dependency can bloom. They pair discomfort with their withdrawal and relief with their attention. When you align, they glow. When you question, they cool. Your body learns the pattern before your mind names it. You begin to anticipate their approval. You pre-edit your sentences. You adopt their phrases because it saves energy. Suddenly, you cannot tell where your opinion ends and their echo begins. You know you are mid-shift when your language changes. You say we about a person, a group, an idea, as if your mouth signed a contract. Secret jokes multiply that no one else gets. You find yourself defending choices you did not make. You stop bringing new stories to conversations because there is only one audience that matters. The world outside starts to feel noisy, and noise starts to feel dangerous, and danger is the perfect reason to stay close. Breaking the isolation shift is not a dramatic escape. It is a series of tiny reopenings. Start with contact on a schedule, not a mood. Put 2 names on your week and protect them like appointments. Choose a physical anchor that belongs only to you, a walk, a class, a place where you do not know the script yet. Introduce a small amount of conflicting information every day, not to win an argument, but to remind your brain it still has range. Ask yourself what you believe before you were tired. Write down your own phrases and use them out loud. Your voice must hear itself again. If you love someone who is being shifted, remember that force will only confirm the story they have been given about you. Replace urgency with consistency. Ask how, not why. How did you arrive at that? How does that make you feel tomorrow? Offer quiet invitations with no moral tax for saying no. Suggest neutral spaces where nobody owns the narrative. When they surface, do not greet them with, "I told you so." Greet them with, "I am glad you are here." The most disturbing trick is that isolation feels like safety in the moment. It is warm, it is simple, it is flattering. But real safety has windows. Real love survives interference. Real confidence can afford a second opinion. If someone is dimming the rest of your world to make themselves brighter, that is not a sunrise, it is a blackout. Open the curtains. Call someone who remembers your unedited laugh. Step outside and listen for the parts of you that went quiet. They are not gone. They are waiting for you to widen the room again. The hand on your shoulder feels warm. The smile is kind. And the words sound like praise. But something underneath is tightening around your choices, like a silk thread you did not notice until it tugs. That is the quiet way control begins, not with a shout, with a gift, with a rush of belonging. And here's the promise you earn for listening closely. By the end, you will have one simple line that cuts through pressure and snaps you back to yourself. First, the trick that hooks the deepest is not constant attention, but unpredictable bursts of it. One moment you are lifted high, the next you are left waiting, craving the next hit of approval. Your brain learns to chase what comes and goes. It is called intermittent reward, and it is why people cling to what hurts them. The defense is not to resist the pleasure, but to notice the schedule. If praise arrives in waves that never match your effort, name it in your mind. The pattern loses power the instant you see it. Then comes the love flood. You are celebrated, affirmed, mirrored, your future imagined for you in bright colors. This is love bombing, and it creates a fast debt. When adoration mixes with a sudden request, your body pays before your mind thinks. Slow the transaction. Any request that appears only after you have been glorified deserves a pause. Tell yourself, attention is not a contract. Language is the next cage. They will give you a new vocabulary where old meanings get swapped. Freedom becomes loyalty. Boundaries become betrayal. Questions become negativity. The words feel noble, but they trap your options. When definitions shift, ask, what did this word mean before I met you? If the meaning changed only to serve the speaker, you just found the door. Another move is the foot in the door. It starts small. Hold this. Sign that. Stay a little longer. Each yes seems harmless, but each yes reroutes your sense of who you are. You are the kind of person who says yes, right? That is the story they are writing inside your head. Cut it by rehearsing a polite no in advance. If you plan your no before they plan their ask, your spine stays yours. Watch for the double bind. No matter what you do, you lose. If you go, you are selfish. If you stay, you are weak. If you speak up, you are dramatic. If you stay quiet, you are complicit. The trick is not to play the game. Answer the frame, not the question. Say, I will decide on my terms, not inside that squeeze. It is amazing how fast a double bind dissolves when you refuse both options. They will stack authority on scarcity. A deadline appears, a secret list. An expert name drops into the conversation. You feel the clock heat your skin. Take a breath and time your breath to seconds you choose. Say out loud, real opportunities survive a night of sleep. If they do not, they were bait. You will also see the mirror move. They repeat your words, your values, your pain, and shape it into a story where they are the answer. This is not empathy. It is mapping. To break it, ask them to restate your position in their own words without praise, without spin. If they cannot, they were not listening. They were scouting. Here is the line I promised, the one sentence that interrupts the trance when you feel the squeeze. Let me check with the part of me that says no. Say it softly. Say it like you were calling an old friend from another room. The magic is not in the words, but in the act of reaching for the self who protects you. That moment gives your mind the beat it needs to exit the spell and re-enter your values. You are not fragile for being human. You are not foolish for wanting love, clarity, or safety. The most disturbing tricks exploit the best parts of you. But the moment you name the pattern, pause the rush, and ask that one question. You turn the game. Control depends on your unawareness. Awareness is the reward you keep forever. The trap is built from two doors, and both are painted like freedom. You are told to pick one. The clock is ticking. The room is warm. The voice is kind. You feel the relief of being included, the relief of being decisive. You reach for a handle that was chosen for you long before you walked in. This is the false choice. It is not about what you decide. It is about who designed the decision. A manipulator frames the world so tightly that any move you make serves their plan. They hand you either or and make it sound like liberty. Would you like the deluxe package or the premium? Will you confess now and go home tonight, or keep lying and make it worse for yourself? Are you with us, or are you the problem? The frame narrows, your breath shortens. Your brain loves the clarity, loves the illusion of control, and rushes to cooperate. It works because you are busy. Your attention is finite. Faced with pressure or charm, the mind defaults to the menu in front of it. The moment you accept the frame, you stop searching the room for the third door. You forget you can build a window. You forget you can stay seated and walk away from the game. Watch how the false choice gets dressed up. A salesperson smiles and says, "Do you want to sign today or tomorrow?" Not whether you want to sign at all. A leader announces, "Either we push this through or we all fail." Not whether there are other paths to success. An abuser murmurs, "We can keep this secret and be happy, or we can tell people and ruin what we have." Not whether happiness should require silence. The trick is the same. Focus your eyes on two paths and hide the landscape. There is a darker edge. The manipulator pairs the choice with urgency, scarcity, or obligation. A timer on a screen. A story about other people waiting. A sigh that makes you feel rude for hesitating. They collapse the future into a tiny funnel so you will shrink yourself to fit it. They say things like, "Since you value honesty, you will choose this." They fold your values into their pitch, then leave you to prove you are who you say you are. It is a performance trap. You can feel it when it is happening. The body knows, the shoulders tighten, the tongue gets heavy. The words in your head are short and binary. When you hear yourself thinking, "It has to be one or the other," that is your signal. You are being framed. There are ways out. Name the frame. Say, "Those cannot be my only options." When you speak it, the spell cracks. Ask a question that widens the room. What happens if I wait? What happens if I choose neither? Who benefits from these options, and why do they benefit? Shift from their pace to yours. If someone insists on a fast decision, you can insist on a slow one. If a choice cannot survive one night of sleep, it is not a choice. If you cannot bring a friend or an outsider to look with you, that is a sign the room was built to trap you. Remember that permission is yours to give. Silence is also a choice. Walking away is a choice. Proposing a third option is a choice. You can say, "I am not deciding under pressure." You can say, "This does not align with what I need." You can say nothing and leave. The moment you reclaim the right to expand the menu, the illusion dissolves. The false choice is disturbing because it feels so respectful. You are being asked. You are being involved. Your name is used with gratitude. But involvement is not consent when the options are poisoned. Respect is not real when the frame is a cage. When you feel yourself pulled toward one of two painted doors, pause, breathe, turn your head, look for the window. If you cannot find one, make one. The most unsettling magic loses power the instant you see the wires, the mirrors, the hands that tried to keep you looking forward while they rearrange the world around you. A phone lights up, a sigh slips into your ear, and an innocent sentence turns the air heavy. "After everything I've done for you." Your chest tightens. You feel an urge to fix it, fast. That flood of urgency is not random. That is the guilt spike. A guilt spike is a sharp, engineered jolt that collapses your boundaries into a single reflex. Make it right, now. It sounds like concern, but it frames care as debt. The words are simple. The move is not. It's the difference between sharing a feeling and slipping you a bill. Here's what it looks like in real life. A colleague drops, "I stayed late last week so you could finish. Guess who's staying late today?" A parent says, "I raised you and you won't even call me back." A partner whispers, "I guess I'm the only one who shows up in this relationship." Each line has the same hook. You are good if you agree, you are bad if you don't. Suddenly you're not choosing, you're atoning. Psychologically, the trick taps into our craving for fairness and belonging. We're wired to reciprocate and to repair ruptures in our tribe. When someone implies you've failed them, your mind narrows to one urgent mission: become safe again. That urgency is why guilt spikes work. They compress time, hijack choice, and swap consent for compliance. Naming that pattern loosens its grip. Just saying, "I'm feeling a guilt spike right now," buys you a sliver of space. Space is where your real decision lives. Let's take a simple example. Your friend messages, "Wow, must be nice to forget us." The reflex is to apologize, overcommit, and promise the next 3 weekends. Instead, try separating care from compliance. "I care about you, and tonight I need rest. I'd love to plan another time." Notice the "and." It refuses the false choice between being kind or being clear. It returns you to choice without rejecting the person. That's the pivot. Not guilt, but clarity. Not atonement, but agreement. Another example. Your manager says, "After all the times I covered for you, you can't take this one?" Acknowledge the reality without renting your autonomy. "I appreciate when you covered. Today I can't stay late. If coverage is needed, let's plan it together next week." The spell breaks because you answered the humanity and declined the hook. You're respecting the relationship while refusing the invoice you never agreed to pay. Here's the deeper shift. Many of us were taught that being a good person means never disappointing anyone. That belief is a perfect handle for manipulative hands. Reframe goodness as honest, boundaried care. Taking responsibility is not the same as surrendering your choices. You can own your part without absorbing the whole problem. You can say, "I missed that deadline and I'm fixing it," and still decline a demand that punishes you beyond repair. Reframing turns the guilt spike from a command into a cue, a signal to slow down, breathe, and ask, "What is being asked, and do I agree?" There are phrases that help. Try, "I hear you're upset. I want to talk about it, not decide from guilt." Or, "I value what you did, and I'll make this choice based on what's workable." Or, "If you need something, please ask directly. Implying I'm failing you won't get us there." These lines validate the feeling, expose the mechanism, and invite a real conversation. They keep the relationship in the light where consent lives. Remember, not every heavy moment is manipulation. Sometimes it's just hurt. But the difference is in the door you're offered. A request leaves space. A guilt spike slams you toward one answer. When you can feel that shove, you can step aside and stand inside your values. The most disturbing tricks do not chain your hands. They tilt your heart until your own hands move for them. The antidote is deceptively quiet. Notice the tightening, name the spike, separate care from compliance, and choose. That small sequence returns you to yourself. In the end, control thrives in the split second you don't examine. Claim that second. Let guilt be information, not instruction. And when the pressure swells, remember, the feeling is loud, but your choice is still yours. That is how a guilt spike loses its power. The most commanding voice in the room is often the one that shuts up. Silence slips in like fog, soft and harmless, and then you notice your hands are giving away more than your mouth. Your breath hitches. You start explaining the thing you didn't plan to explain. That is the quiet trick. A simple, deliberate pause that turns your own mind into the lever. Here is how it sneaks up on you. Someone asks a small, pointed question, then goes still. They hold you with steady eyes and an unreadable face. No nod, no saving smile, just space. Your brain, wired to keep conversations alive, scrambles to fill the gap. You soften your position, confess a little more, or accept terms you would have fought against if they had pushed. The silence does the pushing. In a police interview room, the chair squeaks, the clock ticks, and the investigator does less and less. They repeat your last sentence and let quiet expand. Your story starts to sag under its own weight, so you prop it up with extra details. The extra details expose you. In a high-stakes sales meeting, the rep says the number and then goes silent. You feel the need to be polite, to respond, to make the moment less strange. You toss out your true budget, or you add justifications that can be turned into leverage. In a toxic relationship, a partner goes mute after you set a boundary. The hush feels like a verdict. You chase their approval with an apology you do not owe. The silent pause works because discomfort feels like danger. Your nervous system wants to fix it fast. That urge is the handle they grab. You can see the pattern: a short question, a neutral face, a controlled breath, then nothing. The pause stretches just past what is normal, just past what your social training tolerates. You mistake the other person's quiet for power, or judgment, or hidden knowledge. Maybe they know something you do not. Maybe they disapprove. Maybe you should talk, and you do. Groups that prey on belonging refine this to an art. They set tasks where the only response is silence. They stare a little too long. They let you stew in uncertainty until you step forward with personal truths that make you more compliant later. Silence becomes a mirror and then a cage. Resisting does not require volume. It requires naming. Internally, say the trick to yourself. This is the pause. The moment you name it, it shrinks from spell to tactic. Breathe lower and slower, like you are pouring air into a bucket in your stomach. If you want time, ask for it cleanly. I will think about that. If the question is unfair, redirect it once and set your own rhythm. I cannot answer that as phrased. Here is what I can say. You bought yourself space. Use the stillness against the stillness. Let your silence be intentional, not reactive. Look down at your notes. Sip water. Let the seconds pass until the pressure swings back where it belongs. If they lean on quiet to force a confession or a concession, resist the urge to fill. Repeat your last clear sentence and stop. If you must speak, ask a genuine question that requires them to carry the next piece. What do you mean by that? How did you arrive at that number? Make them earn the noise. After the meeting or the conversation, write down the exact moment the silence hooked you. Was it the eye contact, the blank expression, the clock sound, the heat in your cheeks? Pattern recognition is armor. The next time, you will feel the pull and choose to wait. The pause no longer belongs to them. The trick called silent pause seems gentle, but it is not passive. It is a hand that never touches you, moving you just the same. You do not have to fight it with speeches. You can answer it with the simplest counter in the world. Your own quiet, owned on purpose, held without fear, released when you decide. Start with your breath. Someone across from you matches it, a half beat behind, like an echo that learned to breathe. Then your shoulders, your head tilt, your smile. Not exaggerated, not comic. Just enough to make your nervous system whisper, I know this person. That whisper is the gate. The trick is called a mirror match, and once it slides past your awareness, your guard holds the door open. They do not need to talk first. Sometimes they watch. They catalog the rhythm of your voice, the way you pause before names, the words you choose to sound careful or casual. A mirror match is not just copying posture. It is stitching together a reflection out of your habits. If you speak softly, they soften. If you sit forward, they lean in. If you laugh through your nose, they do too, as if the joke was born in both of you. Your brain reads this as similarity, and similarity feels safe. Safety in this context is consent to proceed. You tell a small story, something you have told 100 times. They pick up a phrase you use and place it in their next sentence like a souvenir you forgot to take back. You mention you value honesty, and they say honesty is everything to them. You say you hate wasted time, and they hate it too. You confess you do not drink coffee after noon, and they nod, as if that little boundary were a shared religion. It is pleasant. It is disarming. The exchange warms. A mirror match feeds you the flavor of yourself and waits for your appetite to grow. Here is where it turns. Once you feel that companionable hum, they test it. A tiny ask. Hold my bag for a second. Watch my spot. Could you send me that link? Small compliance is a proof of bonding. The next ask is a touch larger, repackaged as a favor inside your values. Since you care about honesty, let me be straight with you. Since you hate wasted time, we should decide now. See how your own words become the lever? The mirror is not flattery. It is a way to borrow your weight. If you push back, they mirror that too. You say, I have doubts, and they confess their own doubts, as though resistance were a duet. They match your speed, your hesitation, your furrowed brow. If you lighten, they lighten. If you darken, they darken. The mirror keeps pace until your mind hears only itself bouncing back. The disturbing part is that a mirror match can feel like autonomy. You feel like you are moving freely because the reflection moves when you move, but it has already chosen the corridor and is walking beside you to prevent you from turning another way. When two mirrors face each other, the tunnel seems endless. That is the mirror match at full power. They reflect not just posture and tone, but also your story about yourself. If you believe you are the responsible one, they cast you as the hero who needs to act. If you believe you are misunderstood, they are the first to finally understand. If you believe you are difficult to sway, they praise your independence, then make the suggestion that lets you prove it by agreeing. The loop closes. You choose what you were led to choose, and it feels like victory. How do you spot it before your breath is not your own? Start by listening for timing. True rapport is messy. It overlaps, interrupts, comes out crooked. A mirror match is a touch too smooth, a half beat behind, then perfectly aligned. Notice agreement that arrives without friction, especially when it borrows your exact words. Watch for sudden sameness that ignores context, like a stranger who shares too many of your quirks in too little time. Pay attention to the way requests are wrapped in your values, as if your beliefs were being used like wrapping paper around their goals. Break the loop by breaking your rhythm. Switch your posture, change your pace, insert a silence, and hold it. Ask a question that requires them to lead with something original, not a reflection, and wait. Do not fill the space. Mirrors go dim when you stop feeding them light. And if you feel that warm perfume of instant kinship rising too fast, name it to yourself. Say, I feel pulled. Naming is a hand on the emergency brake. The most unsettling thing about a mirror match is not that someone else can copy you. It is that your own patterns can be turned into handles. Once you know that, you can keep your hands to yourself. It starts with a word that slides past your guard, a little nudge that feels like your idea. You do not feel a hand on your back, but you move. That is the chilling part of mind control, not the chains, the permission. Picture a stranger who seems to know you. They repeat your name, mirror your posture, match your tone. Your nervous system whispers, this person is safe. In seconds, your brain files them under familiar, and familiar is half the win. Once that door is cracked, they do not kick it in. They widen it with small, harmless favors. Say yes to a tiny ask, and your mind hates to contradict itself later. You become the kind of person who helps, and when the request grows teeth, your identity is already on the line. Sometimes they start with a gift, a coffee, a compliment, a small, unexpected kindness that leaves a hook. Reciprocity is ancient code. You gave to me, I must give back. You feel uneasy refusing, so you do not. That is how a free sample becomes a quiet obligation. You think you chose. Really, you paid a debt you never owed. Other times, the first ask is huge and outrageous, something you would never accept. You refuse with relief. Then they pivot to something smaller, almost reasonable by comparison. The contrast shrinks your defenses. You are not saying yes to the request, you are saying no to being unreasonable. The frame has shifted, and with it, your line in the sand. Watch the costume, a lab coat, a badge, a clipboard. We are wired to obey symbols of authority even when the authority is only cloth and cardboard. The tone is calm, the jargon thick, the certainty absolute. Under the weight of confidence, your doubts feel naive, even silly. There is a reason con artists learn the language of experts. Authority is a spell that makes questions feel like sins. Language, too, can smuggle ideas past the gate. Call it a fee and you resist. Call it a membership and you feel chosen. Replace a lie with a fog of almost truths and you cannot find the edges. If they can make you repeat their words, they can make you carry their meanings. That is how propaganda works. Repeat, simplify, amplify. If it rhymes, it lodges. If it scares, it spreads. Speaking of fear, there is a brutal rhythm called fear, then relief. They trigger a spike, threat, urgency, a deadline that clangs like an alarm, and just when your mind goes loud, they pull the danger away. That warm wash of relief makes people compliant. In that softened afterglow, you will sign, you will agree, you will nod. Not because you chose, but because your body is tired of bracing. Isolation is another quiet blade. Cut you off from other voices, and your perspective narrows until their version is the only map. Add sleep loss, break the clock, and your willpower phrase. Repeat the message in the late hours, and your brain, desperate for pattern, accepts it. Tired minds do not wrestle with suggestions. They lay down and let the suggestion climb in. Gaslighting is the termite that hollows your certainty from the inside. They deny what you saw, mangle your memory, insist that your reaction, not their act, is the problem. Over time, you outsource reality to the person who keeps moving the goalposts. It is not a trap you notice. It is a slow drift until you are asking permission to feel what you feel. Then there is the crowd. If everyone else is standing, you stand. If the room applauds, your palms itch. Social proof is a stampede hidden inside polite laughter and nods. The trickster knows this, so they manufacture a crowd, real or fake, and let the herd carry you. You do not want to be the only one sitting when the wave rises. None of these tricks look like hypnosis. They look like everyday moments bent at angles that favor the manipulator. The defense is not paranoia. It is pausing. Ask yourself, who benefits from my hurry? Would I say yes if I had one full night of sleep? Does this label change the meaning or just the feeling? If the request is harmless, it will survive your questions. If it is control by another name, the silence that follows will be telling. Remember, the scariest cage is the one you decorate. Stay curious. Keep your words your own. And when a hand tries to guide your steps, check whether it is leading you somewhere you would walk alone. Mid-sentence, the rules change, and your mind lunges to catch up. That tiny gap, the split second between what you expected and what actually happened, is where the confusion loop lives. Here is the shape of it. Someone floods your attention with mismatched signals, too many choices, muddled timelines, words that sound official but mean nothing. While your brain scrambles to stitch the pieces together, they slip in a clear line that just happens to serve them. You grab the only solid thing in the chaos, and now you are holding the leash they handed you. Picture this. A stranger on the street offers you a quick zero-cost benefit that ends yesterday but is still available now. He talks fast, smiles wider, gestures to a clipboard that suddenly looks like a safety raft. It is simple. You are qualified. Just a confirmation signature we do before the explanation, so it stays accurate, okay? You hear yes and then no in the same breath. You start to ask a question, and he nods like you already agreed. Perfect. Just initial here, because if we wait, compliance resets and we lose your rate. Your ears are chasing the sentence that just ran away. Your hand moves toward the pen. Or think about a tense meeting. Your manager says the project is both urgent and not urgent, that you are free to decide, but your freedom is to follow what is already decided, that the stakes are low unless you hesitate. Then they are high. As the contradictions pile up, You are desperate for a single clear instruction. So, just send it as is, they say softly, like a life preserver tossed into choppy water. You reach for calm. You nod. Confusion loops do not rely on logic. They sidestep it. They work on timing. Your brain loves patterns. It counts on beginnings that lead to middles, that lead to ends. Break that rhythm on purpose. Yes means no. Later means now. Simple is complicated and complicated is simple. And your attention narrows to the person offering resolution. The loop is not only the noise, it is the relief that follows. The relief becomes the hook. Listen for the tricks that prime the loop. Vague authority words, policy, compliance, verification, reversals that erase your footing. It is urgent, but do not rush. It is free, but we need a deposit. This is optional, but everyone must do it. Rapid reframes that make you question your own memory. We talked about this. You agreed already. You misunderstood earlier. Notice how your body responds. The first sign is a mental flinch, then a little fog, then a weird urge to be done at any cost. The exit is not dramatic. It is simple and steady. First, name the fog. Say, I am not following yet. Those words slow the tempo and return the rhythm to you. Second, separate their noise from your choice. Ask for one clear statement. What exactly are you asking me to do? Then be silent. Let the silence do the sorting that your brain was trying to do at double speed. Third, break the loop physically. Stand up, step away, write it down, or move your eyes to something still. Confusion wants momentum. You are allowed to remove it. There is a reason this trick feels personal. It borrows your mind's best habit, pattern making, and turns it against you. But your same mind holds the antidote. Patterns are not just built, they are chosen. When you insist on clarity, you are not being difficult. You are setting the tempo that makes real consent possible. If someone gets frustrated by your pace, that is information. If they keep stacking contradictions when you ask for a single sentence, that is information. If they try to rush the yes that your gut has not given, that is information. Collect it. Honor it. The most disturbing thing about a confusion loop is how normal it can feel in the moment. You think you are cooperating. You think you are being efficient. You think peace lives in the fastest yes. It does not. Peace lives in the clear yes or the clear no, spoken when the fog has lifted and the rhythm is yours again. It starts with something so small you almost don't notice. A light touch on the arm during a conversation, a hand resting briefly on your shoulder. In everyday life, these can be gestures of warmth, reassurance, or connection. But in the wrong hands, that same action becomes something else entirely. A tool for influence. That's the subtle power of what's known as a touch trigger. A touch trigger isn't about the touch itself, but about what your brain does with it. Human touch is one of the oldest forms of communication we have. From the moment we're born, touch signals safety, care, and trust. Psychologically, it releases oxytocin, the hormone that helps us bond with others. And it can lower stress by calming the body's fight or flight response. In normal relationships, this is a good thing. But that's exactly why it can be manipulated. Imagine you're in a negotiation. The other person lightly taps your hand as they make a point. It's not pushy. It feels almost friendly, but research shows that even a brief, non-threatening touch can make someone more agreeable, more likely to comply, and more open to persuasion. The effect is often unconscious. You don't think, they touch my arm, so I'll say yes. But your body has already registered the signal and shifted your emotional state. This works outside of formal settings too. In sales, hospitality, or politics, touch can create a false sense of intimacy, a handshake that lingers, a guiding hand on your back as you're led into a room, small cues that bypass your logical mind and go straight to the emotional part of your brain. Psychologically, This taps into what's called associative learning. Your mind links the touch to positive emotions, and those emotions can color your perception of the person. Of course, touch triggers aren't always sinister. Coaches use them to motivate players. Friends use them to show solidarity. But when the intention is to steer your decisions without your awareness, it becomes a form of subtle control. And the hardest part is, it doesn't feel like control. It feels like connection. Recognizing a touch trigger means noticing the context. Is this a natural part of the interaction, or does it happen right before you're being asked to agree, commit, or trust? Is it paired with persuasive language or requests for action? The more aware you are, the more you can separate the warmth of the gesture from the influence it's trying to exert. Touch is one of the most human things we share. It can build bonds faster than words. But in the wrong context, it's also a backdoor to your instincts. One that can be opened before you even realize someone's knocking. Awareness is the lock. And once you have it, you get to choose whether the gesture is welcome or just well-timed. A shiny badge can move a room without lifting a finger, a velvet rope, a whisper of invite only, a line about being in the inner circle. Watch how people lean in. There is a reason our attention spikes when something looks prestigious. It hints at safety. It hints at power. It hints at belonging. Status bait is the trick of dangling prestige to steer decisions. It is not a hard sell. It is a soft glow. Someone doesn't tell you what to do. They hint at who you could be if you say yes. The title does the pushing, the wristband does the talking, and the scariest part is how quickly it works on thoughtful, independent people who would swear they cannot be manipulated. Here is what it looks like in real life. Your coworker says, "We're doing a small leadership huddle after hours. Super casual. I'd love for you to swing by." You were about to head home. You promised yourself you would, but leadership lands like a pin in your chest. You picture being seen in that room. You picture what it signals. You say, "Sure, I'll pop in." The next morning, you realize nothing concrete happened at that huddle, except your time got spent and your boundaries got softened. The only thing exchanged was the feeling of being closer to a door with a gold handle. Psychologically, this taps into social proof, authority, and scarcity. Our brain loves what few people have, trusts what looks official, and follows where others seem to be going. That combination is potent because it does not argue. It flatters, and flattery lowers the guard faster than force ever could. Another version lives online in the post that says, "Only the top 1% will get this." No one wants to be left out of the smart crowd, so we click, we share, we chase. In dating, it is the person who keeps you just barely included. I don't do labels, but you know you're special. And somehow, you accept less than you wanted because the word special is a shimmering collar. In sales, it is the tiered offer with a founder's circle that has a different color card but the same product underneath. The lure is not the thing. The lure is the status around the thing. The reframe is simple and uncomfortable. Status feels like value, but it is not value. If you strip the ribbon off, what substance remains? Would you still want it if no one knew you had it? Would you still go if the title vanished from the room? If the person doing the inviting had no crown, would their request still make sense? A small habit breaks the spell. Name the bait aloud. This is making me feel chosen. The moment you see the mechanism, it loses mystique. Slow the decision by a breath. Ask for the plain version with the ribbon removed. What exactly happens at this huddle? What do I commit to by accepting this role? What changes for me beyond how it looks? If the answers are foggy, you are probably being steered by shine, not sense. This is not about rejecting recognition or pretending you do not care about belonging. It is about separating the feeling from the choice. You can accept praise and still decline the trap it is attached to. You can be proud of your progress and still skip the room that feeds on that pride. When status stops being your compass, pressure turns into information instead of instruction. If you lead others, remove the bait and offer clarity. Replace elite circle with real purpose. Replace vague prestige with specific outcomes. People will trust you more when they do not have to decode your invitations. And if you are on the receiving end, remember, the point of status bait is not to give you power, it is to take yours. The badge is loud. Your values are quiet. Choose the quiet. Status bait only works when you bite. It starts with something tiny, a nod, a signature on a clipboard, a promise you barely notice you made. That is the first link in the commitment chain, and once it clicks shut, the pull begins. Picture a smiling stranger on a sidewalk offering a harmless pledge. Maybe it is a sticker that says you support clean parks, or a small favor like holding a door for a delivery. You say yes because you are decent, because you like to be consistent with who you think you are. A week later, the same cause calls you by name. You already care, right? Could you spare a few minutes for a survey? You agree. Soon, the request grows teeth. A donation, a monthly commitment, a public post to show your support. Each step is still you being you, or so it feels. That is the trap. The chain is not dragged onto you. You build it with your own agreements, one link at a time. Marketers, cults, scammers, even pushy acquaintances, all love this trick because it hijacks your self-image. Once you say, I am the kind of person who helps, the next ask does not sound like a new decision. It sounds like a chance to prove you are still you. That feeling is powerful. It is also dangerous because it blinds you to changes in cost, risk, and control. Listen for the rhythm. Small, harmless, fast, yes. Slightly larger yes that references the first one. Public yes that is visible to others. Then the heavy ask. That would have been a hard no on day one. By the time you get there, you are explaining to yourself why it makes sense. The chain holds. Online, this pattern wears glossy skins. A free trial nudges you to enter a card, just to keep your progress. A tiny checkbox opts you into updates. You click agree because you want a feature. 2 days later, a limited time bonus whispers, upgrade now to keep your streak. The language flatters your consistency. You are almost there. Do not break it. That is not persuasion. That is pressure shaped like encouragement. Here is the uncomfortable truth. The commitment chain is not evil by nature. It is how we build good habits and long friendships. The disturbing part is how easily it can be turned against you. So you need a blade to cut it when it tightens. Start by naming the pattern out loud. I am being led from a small yes to a bigger yes because of consistency. That breaks the spell of momentum. Next, redraw the decision boundary. Instead of, do I keep being consistent? Ask, does this specific request deserve a fresh decision? New information, new decision. Repeat that phrase. It frees you from the weight of your past nods. Give yourself a delay rule. I do not accept new commitments on the spot. Say it calmly. Let silence do the work. Predators of attention hate silence because it snaps the chain. If pressure escalates, step back one link. What did I actually agree to? You will notice how often the current ask is a leap, not a step. You can decline the leap without betraying your values. Be careful with public pledges. A quiet yes can be revised. A broadcasted yes hardens into identity. When someone tries to make you declare something loudly or in writing, ask why it needs to be public. If the reason is accountability, set your own measure and timeline. If the reason is optics, walk away. Finally, practice reversal. Make the other side restate your freedom. Try this line. If I say no right now, will anything bad happen besides you being disappointed? If they cannot offer a clean exit, you are not in a conversation. You are in a trap. The commitment chain thrives on autopilot. It withers when you ask for a fresh choice. So, keep your agreements honest and small. your pauses long enough to think, and your identity flexible enough to change your mind. When the links start to clink, you will hear them sooner, and you will know exactly where to cut. A door to your mind rarely swings open with a bang. It slides open with a single tilted word. The trick is simple, unsettling, and everywhere. Change the label, change the feeling, change the choice. That is the word twist. When someone wants to steer you, they do not start by arguing facts. They start by renaming the world. A layoff becomes right-sizing. A price hike turns into surge pricing. Spying is softened into data collection. Torture is washed into enhanced interrogation. Civilian deaths blur into collateral damage. The experience shifts, not because reality moved, but because the words did. If you accept the new label, your emotions follow the label's lead like a dog on a leash. Here is why it works. Words carry frames, and frames carry rules. Call a fee an investment, and it feels responsible to pay it. Call a demand an opportunity, and it feels foolish to decline. Twist a verb into a noun, and everything hard and messy turns into a thing that sounds inevitable. We did harm turns into harm was done. Suddenly no one did it. Repeat the softened word a few times, and it starts to feel like the normal word. Your brain prefers familiar paths, even if the path was laid by someone else with their own destination in mind. The word twist hides inside questions too. Instead of asking whether you agree, the controller asks how quickly you want to get started. The yes is smuggled in before you answer. Instead of asking what you think, they ask how you feel about this exciting plan, and now excitement is planted like a seed. Slip in a because, and your resistance drops. People hear a reason and often stop asking if it is a good reason. Because gives the sentence a badge of authority, even when the logic is hollow. Stack a few warm adjectives in front of a cold idea, and the warmth bleeds over. Trusted, community-backed, proven. And then comes the thing that deserves none of those words. Watch the move in a quick scene. A recruiter smiles and says, "This is not a contract. This is a commitment to yourself. We are not asking for money. We are inviting you to invest in your future. You are not being pressured. You are being recognized." The room nods because who wants to refuse recognition? Who wants to say no to their future self? The recruit never hears the plain truth that this is a bill, a sale, a push. They hear a story told in tilted words, and by the end of the story, they have walked to the table and signed the page. It shows up in arguments at home as well. I am not ignoring you. I am giving you space. I did not lie, I simplified. I am not controlling, I am protecting. Each swap hides accountability inside something that sounds caring. It is disturbing because it does not fight your logic head on. It slides around your guard by making the bad things sound a little better, and the controller sound a little kinder. So, how do you break the spell? Translate the twist back to plain speech. When you hear surge pricing, say to yourself, price increase. When you hear enhanced, ask improve for whom. When someone packs a question with a hidden yes, take a slow breath and answer the part they skipped. Do I want to do this at all? When a sentence arrives in the passive voice, ask who did what to whom. If the answer makes someone uncomfortable, that discomfort is a compass. Invite specifics. What does recognition mean? What exactly happens next? The more concrete the words, the less room there is for magic tricks. Name the frame before it names you. You can even keep a small list of your own clear labels and reach for them when you feel the tilt. Bill, not investment. Deadline, not opportunity. Pressure, not excitement. The person twisting the words will feel it when you refuse the swivel. You will feel it too, like stepping off a moving walkway. Remember this. Words are handles on your attention. If you let someone else choose all the handles, they will move you without touching you. The mind control is not in a chip or a trance or a glare. It is in the quiet renaming of things that you care about. Keep your language plain, your questions direct, and your labels your own. That is how you keep the door from sliding open. A still stare can make time feel heavier. 1 second stretches, your mouth goes dry, and suddenly you are answering in a way you did not plan. That is the quiet power of the eye contact lock. It is not yelling, not threats, not a flashy trick. It is stillness that corners a mind. Here is the idea. When you lock eyes and refuse to be the first to look away, you hijack attention. The brain treats gaze like a spotlight, and where the spotlight points, thoughts line up. Done deliberately, the lock narrows someone's options until complying feels like the path of least resistance. Most people think eye contact is just confidence. Used precisely, it is control. Picture this. You approach a coworker who has been avoiding a deadline. You do not start with a speech. You meet them in the doorway, step in half a pace, align your shoulders, and catch their eyes. You hold it. Not a glare, not a smile. Just focus. You speak slowly. Fewer words than usual. We need the file by noon. Then you go silent, still holding the gaze. They fidget. Look at your left eye, then your right. The way people do when they search for an exit that is not there. They start explaining. You nod once, tiny, still locked. By noon, you repeat. The silence does the leaning. They exhale. Okay, I'll send it. The lock breaks only after the agreement. It feels like you pulled them forward without moving. Why does this work? Psychologically, steady eye contact is a threat and a magnet at the same time. The nervous system scans it as importance. It raises arousal just enough that the mind starts hunting for a way to resolve the tension. The simplest relief is to agree, to answer, to follow. The lock also sets the rhythm. Your slow blink, your unhurried words, they become the tempo the other person falls into. If you break first, you hand back the beat. If you hold, their speech patterns begin to match yours, and matching softens resistance. There are moves inside the lock. Aim your focus at the triangle between their eyes and the bridge of the nose. It feels intimate and precise. Keep your head still. Let your expression be neutral, curious rather than aggressive. Speak in short phrases and end with a downward tone that sounds complete. Plant your request or your boundary right at the end of a sentence. Then let silence bloom. Silence is the partner to eye contact. It says, without words, stay with me right here. Notice how doors, elevators, and thresholds amplify the effect. Tight spaces raise tension. The lock becomes louder without you doing anything extra. Another scene. Someone tries to cut a line, brushing past with a quick, "I'll be fast." You pivot, meet their gaze, and freeze the moment. We are all waiting. Hold. They feel the eyes of the group join yours. The lock spreads. They mutter, "Step back." No raised voice, no argument, just gravity. There is a darker edge, and that is why it is disturbing. The eye contact lock can be used to bulldoze, to trap, to make someone feel small. You can push too far and tip people into anger or shame. There is a responsibility baked in here. If the other person is vulnerable or frightened, the lock becomes a weapon. If you sense real distress, break first, soften your face, and give them an exit. Power is not just the ability to press, it is the wisdom to release. Most of us were taught to sprinkle eye contact like polite seasoning. The reframe is this: eye contact is not a garnish. It is the flame. It cooks whatever you put in front of it. Aim it and things change. Mistime it and you burn the dish. So, practice with low stakes. Ask for a glass of water at a cafe. Hold the gaze a heartbeat longer than usual. Then thank them and look away. Notice the subtle shift. Build control, not force. In the end, words are only part of persuasion. People follow presence. A calm, unblinking focus tells the nervous system, here is what matters. Respect the line, use it sparingly, and understand that you can bend a moment without raising your voice. That is the unsettling secret of the eye contact lock. It starts with a shrug so small you almost miss it, a half smile that seems polite, and a word chosen like a splinter. That is the entry point, not a slap, not a shove, just a drift of doubt, floating into your head and settling where your confidence used to sit. The trick is called a neg hint. It is not the loud insult everyone hears. It is the quiet suggestion only you feel. A neg hint lives in the space between praise and put down. It sounds like bold choice, with just enough lift on the last word to make you wonder if you chose wrong. It hides inside a teasing chuckle. It wears the mask of feedback. And because it is never fully stated, it is hard to grab, hard to challenge, and frighteningly easy to absorb. Here is how it works. First, ambiguity gives the speaker cover. If you call it out, they can say, "Relax, I was joking," or "You misunderstood me." Second, it pokes your status radar. Humans hate the idea of falling in the social pecking order. A soft, implied criticism nudges you to protect your standing by proving yourself. Third, timing. A neg hint lands right after you share an idea, show up in a new outfit, pitch a plan, or tell a story you care about. The moment you open up is the moment the seed gets planted. You hear it in lines like, "I guess that works for you." Most people would find that tough. Interesting. Did you mean to do it that way? Or, "I love that you don't care what people think." The words are vague. The tone is everything. A smile that is almost kind. A pause that whispers, "Try harder." Often they will pair it with a light touch on your shoulder, a sigh laugh, or a tiny head tilt. It teaches you to chase approval you did not need 5 minutes ago. If the person wants control, the pattern continues. A micro compliment, then a micro cut. Warmth, then a chill. You get hooked on earning back the warmth. You change your choices to avoid the chill. You ask for their opinion more often. You let them set the frame, and soon you are playing a game they designed. Watch for red flags. Do you feel clear before you speak, but slightly foggy after? Do you start editing yourself around them? Do you hear yourself asking for reassurance you did not used to need? Do their jokes come with a tiny sting? And do you find yourself defending your reaction instead of their words? One hint may be a bad day. A run of hints is a strategy. There are simple counters. First, name the move, at least to yourself. Say quietly in your head, "That was a neg hint." Naming takes away its mystery. Second, clarify. Calmly ask, "What did you mean by that?" Hints hate light. They thrive in the shadow of implication. Third, reframe without drama. "I like my choice," or "That works for me," or "I am not looking for notes on this." Say it like you were stating the weather. Fourth, set a boundary with playful precision. If that was a joke, it missed. Or, if you have real feedback, say it plainly. If they retreat into, "You are too sensitive," you have learned something useful about them. If you need space, take it. Do not debate. Do not deliver a speech about respect. A simple, "I am stepping out," can be stronger than any counterpunch. Your calm is pressure they cannot turn. If you worry you will freeze in the moment, rehearse. Pick one line you like and make it yours. "Please be clear," or "Be kind." "I am not available for hints." That tone does not work for me. Practice out loud until your mouth knows the words even when your heart races. Most of this game relies on surprise. Preparation is how you take back time. Remember, the goal of a neg hint is not to inform you, it is to move you. When you stop moving, it stops working. Hold your posture. Keep your eye contact soft, not aggressive. Breathe before you respond. Choose silence if the room is noisy with implication. Your value does not live in their eyebrows. It does not bend with their shrug. When the hint arrives, let it pass through like a draft. Close your window. Keep your warmth. And walk your path without narrating it for anyone who has not earned the right to be your critic. Tick by tick, the room tightens. The clock on the wall is not there to tell time. It is there to squeeze you. It is there to whisper that if you do not move now, you will miss something forever. This is the Scarcity Countdown, and it smooths every sharp edge of your judgment until yes feels like survival. Picture this. A bright screen flashes an offer. There are only a handful left. The timer reads 5 minutes. Your chest gets a little lighter, your fingers a little faster. Nothing about the product changed in the last breath, but your body acts like it did. That is the first turn of the screw. Make the supply seem small, and your brain inflates the value to fill the gap. Then the page shows that other people are watching. Someone in another city just grabbed one. A little pop appears at the corner, showing a name and a location. The timer slides beneath 4 minutes, and suddenly it is not only you and the object. You are inside a race. Social proof loads the gun, time pressure pulls the trigger. Your mind hears a crowd moving and thinks, I should move too, or I will be left behind. With 3 minutes left, the language grows intimate. It is the last chance, the final round, the only path to what you deserve. A private club door swings half shut, and you are already inside the velvet rope, but only if you keep going. This is identity scarcity. Say yes now, to stay who you believe you are. Say no, and risk being the kind of person who misses the moment. They do not sell the thing. They sell you a story about you with a ticking soundtrack. 2 minutes remain, and the offer changes shape. There is a regular version, a premium version, and a luxury version that most people would never pick. That top one is a decoy, bloated on purpose. Standing next to it, the middle one seems reasonable, a bargain even. You did not compare it to your budget or your actual need. You compared it to the decoy under the drumbeat of a countdown. And that comparison was rigged. 1 minute, and the pop-ups feel like fireworks. A special bonus, a free add-on, but only if you finish before the clock hits 0. Your attention splinters. You are not thinking about quality or fit anymore. You are thinking about loss. The fear of loss weighs more than the hope of gain. And under a timer, loss screams the loudest. You hit buy, not because you wanted the thing, but because you wanted the feeling of the clock going quiet. Here is the part that makes it disturbing. None of this needs to be true. The inventory can be fake. The names can be made up. The timer can restart for the next person. The entire stage set is movable. What is not movable is your nervous system. It reacts faithfully to the illusion of not enough. The trick does not need to be honest. It only needs to be urgent. So how do you walk out of that room with your mind intact? First, name the countdown out loud, even if it is a whisper. When you label a tactic, you loosen its grip. Say, they are using scarcity to rush me. Second, change the clock. Make a rule that you wait at least 1 hour on any timed offer. Walk away, drink water, breathe slow. If it is real, it will still be real. If it is fake, it will be gone, and good riddance. Third, shift the frame from losing to choosing. Ask, what will this actually do for me next month? Not the version of me in this flashing moment, but the quiet version of me who has to live with it. Listen for the lines that try to make the limit about you. The last chance for people like you. The only spot for insiders. When a marketer talks like a gatekeeper, remember you do not need their gate. When a timer tries to own your next breath, count your own breaths. Slow them down. That sound you hear is not the end rushing toward you. It is your attention, turning back to you second by second. The Scarcity Countdown wants you obedient. Let it run out. Let it blink to 0. Watch what happens when nothing explodes. The spell breaks. The room opens, and in the quiet that follows, you will be the one setting the time. The first time Mara borrowed a thought, it slid into her head like a splinter under a fingernail. It was small, precise, and it belonged to someone else. She was a junior reporter chasing a boutique firm that promised to make public outrage go quiet. No dark rooms, no pendulums, just words that soften teeth. Elias, a stage magician who consulted for her off the record, called it courtesy capture. People think mind control is a shout, he said. It is a whisper dressed as a favor. He showed her how a pause could herd attention like a sheepdog, how a warm drink at the door makes you say yes to a stranger, how a shoulder touch on the beat of a sigh makes the body lean before the brain decides. None of it illegal, all of it cumulative. The firm's office was behind a flower shop that smelled deliberately like baked apples. The receptionist kept a bowl of peppermint by the sign-in sheet. The pen weighted the hand just enough to slow the signature and match it to the rhythm of a ceiling fan. The green on the walls was not decoration. That shade lives between alert and rest, just soft enough to make arguments feel rude. Mara felt the room setting her tempo like a drummer hidden in the next apartment. She was there to ask about a curious pattern. After a company flooded a neighborhood, it hired the firm to write a statement. "We hear you. We are learning. We will do better." Weeks later, local protests fizzled, not because the harm was repaired, because something about the cadence drained the edges off anger. When a celebrity was caught, the same rhythm arrived. When a tech platform harvested private messages, the same vow appeared, followed by a delicate invitation to help shape the future together. The public nodded along, exhausted and included. Mara's notebook grew heavy with examples. A teacher strike defined by open listening sessions that let workers speak first for long minutes in warm rooms, followed by a shared breathing exercise that made demands sound too sharp for such peace. A city council meeting where the chairs were arranged just a little too close, every elbow creating unconscious agreement. A charity raffle ending with each donor holding a small gift bag so they would leave with less appetite to push back. The trick was never the trick. The trick was how the room taught the body to play nice. Elias warned her to carry a counter rhythm. Snap your fingers in an odd pattern. Change your pace. Break the beat. She tucked an antique metronome into her bag, more charm than tool. It clicked against her phone in a stubborn little heartbeat. The firm's creative director had a voice like velvet cut with salt. He said they did not manipulate, they de-escalated. Isn't that what a society wants? Less shouting and more listening. He offered tea. She sipped out of politeness. The cup was just warm enough to make her release her jaw. A small kindness is a leash you clasp yourself. She asked about the borrow. The phrase had crawled into her notes after an interview. We hear you. Not surprising, but it had also crept into her texts to friends, her emails to sources, her late-night thoughts when she brushed her teeth. We hear you, not I hear you. We. Her voice had turned communal without asking permission. The director smiled and leaned back, letting silence do the work. People fill emptiness with concession. There was an old mirror near the exit, speckled with age. People look at themselves when they leave, he said. They catch their own eyes and align to their own face. It is the most persuasive person they know. He laughed softly. He did not need to ask her for anything. She was already answering questions that felt like her own. On the walk home, Mara tried Elias's tricks. She hummed a tune with an odd count to break the cadence in her head. She kept her eyes on street corners instead of faces. The splinter still throbbed. In the dim of her apartment, she emptied her pockets. Keys. A crushed peppermint. A scrap of paper folded into a tight square. Her handwriting, but she did not remember writing it. Publish the profile as fair, it said. Praise the temperature of the tea. Note how you felt heard. She laughed, more brittle than brave. She set the metronome on the counter and wound it. The ticking was steady. Too steady. She turned it off, and the silence rushed in. For a moment, she would swear the apartment itself took a breath. The radiator exhaled. The fridge clicked. Her phone screen lit with a notification from an unknown number. Only one word, soft as a hand on the shoulder. Comply. The smile arrives before the yes. That is the trick. Not a warm grin that sneaks up because something delighted you, but the smile that is asked for, nudged into place, held a little too long, watch for it. A forced smile is a key that turns locks inside your head. Your brain listens to your face. When the corners of your mouth pull upward, the muscles in your cheeks engage, your breath shifts, your voice softens by a shade. The body reads that as safety. Then the mind adjusts the story to match the pose. If I am smiling, this must be fine. If I am smiling, this must be friendly. A skilled manipulator knows that if they can get your face to signal calm, they have a head start on everything that follows. So they get the smile first. The high-pressure seller greets you like an old friend and says, "Give me a smile, we're going to have fun today." The boss who wants unpaid hours chirps, "Let's see those smiles, team, we love a challenge." The controlling partner tilts their head and says, "Smile for me, so I know you are not mad." The cult recruiter insists, "We only share positive energy here. Smile while you speak." Think about what is happening. Before you decide anything, before you hear the details, they have asked your body to pretend your decision is already made. A forced smile does not only change how you feel, it changes how you are seen. People mirror faces without thinking. When you smile, others tend to soften. That creates a quick illusion of harmony that can be exploited. It is a loop. They make you smile. You soften. They mirror it back. You read their softening as proof that everything is friendly. Then the ask slips in easier. Here's the rhythm you will notice once you start listening. Step 1, brighten up. Step 2, reassurance wrappers, we are all good here. Step 3, the favor, the signature, the small exception, just this once. And if your smile flickers or fails, there is a tiny punishment. "Aw, come on, where is your spirit? Do not be so negative. You look better when you smile." And the moment you comply, they mark it. Good. That is the face I want. The face they want is permission. The most disturbing part is how normal it can feel. Polite scripts train people to hide discomfort under a smile, to reward the face, not the truth. In the wrong hands, that becomes a lever. Authorities and rigid systems have long understood this. Smile for the leader's portrait. Smile at the parade. Smile in the photo with the new contract. A lack of a smile can be cast as disloyalty, rudeness, aggression. So you learn to put the mask on early and keep it on. It becomes harder to tell when the knot in your stomach is trying to warn you. You do not have to be hostile to resist. You only have to be honest with your face. Try small things. Let your jaw rest. Let your breath drop low and slow. Keep your lips neutral while you listen. If someone insists on a smile first, say, "I will smile when I feel it." If that is too risky, smile with your mouth, but keep your eyes honest and your decisions slow. Name it in your head. They want the smile to make the sale. They want the smile to make the blame feel fair. They want the smile, so I skip my questions. Every time you name it, the spell cracks. Watch for patterns. Do they check your grin before they ask for the favor? Do they only praise you when your face is bright, no matter what is happening to you? Do they accuse you of negativity whenever you set a boundary? Those are signals. Also watch your own body. If the smile feels like a lid on a pot that is boiling, if it trembles at the edges, it is not kindness. It is control. There is a difference between choosing to smile because joy showed up and being told to smile so joy can be forced. The first is human. The second is a script. Give your face permission to disagree with your pressure. Let the corners drop while you decide. Let silence do some talking. Learn to say gentle things with a neutral mouth. "I am thinking. I will need time. I am not comfortable with that." Often, the person who needs your grin to continue will reveal themselves in the pause. Not every bright face is a trap, and there is no virtue in scowling at the world. But when someone reaches for your expression before they reach for your consent, treat it like a hand near your wallet. The mask they want is not just for photos. It is a handle. Keep your face, keep your pace, and let your yes arrive on its own. Your mouth says yes before your mind catches up. A stranger smiles, tilts their head just so, lowers their voice on the word now, and suddenly your pen is in your hand. Covert Command doesn't feel like a trick. It feels like your idea. That's what makes it so unsettling. Here's how it slips in. Our brains love patterns and shortcuts. If someone strings together familiar steps, when you sit down, take a deep breath, and sign here, each phrase sounds harmless. But buried inside are tiny orders that glide under the radar. Sit, breathe, sign. The tone dips, the sentence pauses. A gesture lands at the exact moment the word sign drops, and your body responds before your logic winds up. It feels like rapport. It functions like a remote control. Tiny yeses pave the way. A smile, a harmless confirmation of your name, a nod to the weather, a quick agreement that afternoons feel longer than mornings, and your internal gatekeeper gets drowsy. That's the yes ladder. Each small consent is a foot in the door. And when the bigger ask arrives, your mind is already leaning forward. Choice can be a disguise. Do you want the standard package or the premium? Red plan or blue plan? Do you want to start now or later today? A double bind plants a decision frame where the only real option missing is no. You think you're choosing. You're really selecting the wrapping paper on the same present. Confusion is a blade wrapped in velvet, a flood of jargon, a rapid shuffle of numbers, a smile that never breaks. And just when your brain begins to fog, the lifeline appears. All you need to do is initial here. Relief is the lever. After uncertainty, simple actions feel like safety. That's why rushed environments and noise are favored habitats for these moves. Busyness blurs boundaries. Touch and timing tighten the knot. A warm handshake anchors a feeling. Minutes later, the same light touch on your elbow reactivates trust at the precise moment the request returns. The body remembers the emotion, not the reason. Mirroring your posture, your pace, your words sounds like empathy, functions like sync. When someone sounds like you and breathes like you, your brain tags them as familiar. Familiar equals safe. Safe equals yes. Fear and relief are twin doors. A stern pause, a hint that something might be wrong, the tension rising in your chest, and then a chuckle, a softening. You're all good, nothing to worry about. In the afterglow, people agree to things they would have questioned a minute ago. The nervous system is busy exhaling, and the ask slips by. Scarcity and urgency turn rational minds into sprinters. Only a few left. The rate changes if you step out. Everyone already confirmed. The clock is a metronome, and you start dancing faster without noticing the music never actually started. Social proof, even faked, is a powerful accelerant. If we believe the herd has moved, we run to catch up. The defense is not paranoia, it is pace. Slow the scene. Breathe out through your nose and name what's happening in simple words. This feels rushed. These are illusion of choice questions. I heard an embedded command just now. Call the pattern and it loses its spell. Change something about your body. Uncross your arms, stand up if you're sitting, sit if you're standing. Break the rhythm. Ask for time, even if it's 1 quiet minute. Predators of attention hate daylight and delay. Ask the question that unlocks the trap. What happens if I say no? Watch for wave-off phrases like, it's just a formality, or it's easier if you sign first. Real offers survive scrutiny. Manufactured pressure melts when faced with a pause, a second set of eyes, or a written summary you can review later. If someone resists those, you've learned what you needed. Covert Command feeds on momentum, emotion, and borrowed trust. You don't have to match force with force. You just have to reclaim the tempo. Look for the dip in tone on the word now, the illusion of options without exit, the relief that arrives right before the signature line. When you notice it, you're already safer, because the most disturbing tricks are not magic, they're choreography. And the moment you step off the marked floor, the dance ends. Your choice returns. your voice returns. And the most powerful command in the room becomes the one you keep for yourself. No. They do not yank your thoughts like a puppeteer. They drift closer, match your sigh, shape their face to your feeling, and suddenly it feels like they live inside your head. That ease you feel in your shoulders, that is the door unlocking. Mood mirror is the trick of reflecting your emotional state so precisely that your guard drops on its own, not arguing, not pushing, just warm echo. You say you are overwhelmed, they go soft and say, "That sounds heavy." You frown, they frown with you. Your rhythm slows, theirs slows. Your anger rises, they let theirs simmer to the same low boil. The aim is simple. Create instant safety so your brain stops bracing and starts opening up. Psychologically, when we sense we are understood, we become more willing to keep talking, to compromise, to follow where the moment goes next, which is exactly why this tactic works so well. Here is how it plays out in real life. A coworker corners you after a rough meeting. They lower their voice. "I saw how they talked over you. That was brutal." You exhale. Finally, someone gets it. A minute later, they slide in a suggestion. "If you hand me that part of the project, I can make sure your work is highlighted this time." It sounds like help. It might be. But notice the sequence: reflection, relief, request. When your nervous system hears the echo first, the ask slips by the usual filters because you feel safe with the person who matched you. That mirroring of feelings creates safety and lowers defenses, making people more open to the next move. It happens with a partner too. You vent, "I never get a break around here." Instead of arguing, they nod and say, "You are carrying a lot. That feels good." Then comes, "So let's not visit your family this weekend." It is dressed as relief, but it also steers. The same pattern appears in sales, politics, even online spaces. First, signal sameness. Then, direct the flow. Why does mood mirror bite so deeply? Our brains treat being mirrored as proof of safety. When someone validates what we feel, we experience it as fairness and care, and we naturally lean toward cooperation. People are more cooperative when they feel heard, which is why the mirror precedes the move. Add a dash of reciprocity, and it pulls even harder. They gave you understanding, so giving them agreement feels like balance. And there is another layer. When the other person mirrors your emotions first, your mind mistakes that emotional alignment for shared judgment. You do not just feel understood, you start to trust their suggestions as if they came from inside you. That is the quiet power behind the old advice to mirror feelings before offering fixes. Used with care, it builds connection. Used with intent to steer, it becomes a lever. So, how do you protect yourself without becoming cold or suspicious of every kind gesture? Watch the timing. Real care does not rush the pivot. If understanding arrives and, almost on the same beat, a direction appears, sign this, choose that, side with me, pause. Ask yourself, do I still want this if I remove the comfort I am feeling right now? Check for consistency too. A genuine mirror reflects your whole mood, not just the parts that nudge you their way. If they only echo your frustration but skip your hope or your nuance, their mirror is a mask. You can also try a small reset. Name what is happening gently. I appreciate that you get how drained I feel. Let me think on what I want to do with that. Naming it preserves the safety while returning control to you. That simple naming drains the spell of its speed and gives your judgment a few breaths to catch up. In the right hands, mirroring feelings is human and healing. In the wrong hands, it is a shape-shifting surface that bends your mood into their plan. Keep the comfort, keep the warmth, but before you follow, look past the reflection and notice who is guiding the glass. Mood mirror loses its power the moment you choose your own direction. Your own voice can be a lockpick for your mind, if you use it right. When someone wants to steer you, they repeat phrases until they feel true. They speed you up. They crowd your senses. They make their rhythm your rhythm. Today we flip that. We build a rhythm that belongs to you. Sit or stand with your feet on the ground. Breathe in slow. Breathe out slower. Feel the weight of your heels, the tension in your fingers, the air on your cheeks. Now repeat after me, steady and clear. I notice. I name. I choose. Again, I notice. I name. I choose. One more time, I notice. I name. I choose. That is your anchor. Noticing is sight. Naming is power. Choosing is action. When pressure comes, you come back to those words and the body that says them. Next line. Repeat this. A pause breaks the pattern. Again, slower. A pause breaks the pattern. Last time, with a breath before and after, a pause breaks the pattern. Good. Now we practice pressure. I will speak like a pushy voice, and you will answer with your line. If I say everyone's doing it, your reply is, that is popularity, not proof. Ready? Everyone's doing it. That is popularity, not proof. Do it now, no time to think. A pause breaks the pattern. If you loved me, you would. That is pressure, not proof. Come on, just sign, it's fine. I notice. I name. I choose. Perfect. The trick is not to debate. The trick is to recognize the move and return to your rhythm. Let's set a boundary phrase. Repeat. No is a full sentence. Again, firmer. No is a full sentence. Feel your tongue, your jaw, your chest as you say it. Now, add this. I do not consent to rush decisions. Again, slower. I do not consent to rush decisions. Now will clear fog. A manipulator blurs facts and feelings. When you feel fog, say, feelings are real, facts are checkable. Again, feelings are real, facts are checkable. And again, with a breath. Feelings are real, facts are checkable. Good. We lock in self-trust. Repeat. My attention is mine. Again, my attention is mine. Add the action. I place my attention where I choose. Again, I place my attention where I choose. Now, a body cue that cuts through trance. Roll your shoulders. Rub your thumb against your index finger until you feel texture. Look to your left, then to your right, naming one thing you see each way. Say, I am here, in this room, in this moment. Again, I am here, in this room, in this moment. Let's train against sweet talk. If a voice says, only I can help you, your reply is, I have options. Say it. I have options. If they say, don't tell anyone, your reply is, secrecy is a red flag. Say it. Secrecy is a red flag. If they say, trust me, you don't need to understand, your reply is, understanding comes before trust. Say it. Understanding comes before trust. We strengthen your slow muscle. Repeat. Slow is safe for my thinking. Again, stretching the words. Slow is safe for my thinking. Now we tie it all together. Breathe in. On the exhale, say, I notice. I name. I choose. Pause. Then say, a pause breaks the pattern. Pause. Then, no is a full sentence. Pause. Then, my attention is mine. Pause. Then, understanding comes before trust. One more cycle. Smoother. Breathe in. Speak each line like a drum beat you own. I notice. I name. I choose. A pause breaks the pattern. No is a full sentence. My attention is mine. Understanding comes before trust. Finally, set your exit. This is the phrase you use when a conversation turns slippery. Repeat. I will decide after I step away. Again, calm and final. I will decide after I step away. End with the anchor you started with. I notice, I name, I choose. And feel your heels, your breath, your fingertips, the real world holding you steady. Anytime a trick tries to take the wheel, you have a voice that puts your hands back on it. They do not wave a reward in front of you. They point to a door and whisper about what will vanish if you do not walk through it. That's the loss frame. Instead of promising what you could gain, it tightens your chest around what you might lose. And when your breath shortens, your choices shrink. Picture a salesperson who smiles kindly and says, I can hold this price until midnight. Nothing about the quality, the fit, or the benefit. Just the clock. Or a coworker who tells you, If you push back now, you'll ruin your reputation. Not how your idea could help, just the shadow of belonging slipping away. The lost frame nudges you to move, not because you want something, but because you fear something being taken. Psychologically, this works because our minds are wired to protect what we believe is already ours, even if that ours is only an imagined discount, a promise, or a place in a group. It's fear dressed up as urgency, and urgency is persuasive. Here's how it sounds in everyday life. You get a message, only a few spots left. You pause. Then another line lands. Miss this, and you'll be waiting months. Your thumb inches closer to buy. Or someone leans in and says, if you don't answer now, I can't guarantee you'll be invited again. This is not information. It's a narrowing funnel designed to make you imagine an emptier future. The picture they paint is not bright, it is brittle. And when we imagine brittleness, we grip whatever is in our hand. That grip is exactly what they want. Simply noticing this pattern loosens it. Naming the frame steals some of its oxygen. The disturbing part is how easily it can be customized. A manipulative partner can frame boundaries as loss of love. If you go out with them, we'll never be the same. A manager can frame feedback as loss of status. Speak up, and you might not be seen as a team player. A cult recruiter can frame independent thought as loss of salvation. Questioning is how people fall away. Each version hijacks something you value, affection, belonging, meaning, and dangles a frayed thread over it. Pull here or it unravels. It's never about the reality of the choice. It is about the fear of the consequence. So, what do you do when you feel the frame closing in? Start by widening time. Say, if this opportunity vanishes so quickly, it probably wasn't mine to begin with. Step back from the imagined loss and return to concrete facts. What do you actually know? What is the baseline if nothing changes? Name the baseline out loud, then flip the lens. Ask, what might I lose by rushing? What might I gain by pausing? In that moment, you're reclaiming the frame. You are introducing a second picture where the first tried to be the only one. Psychologically, when you create alternatives, your nervous system relaxes, and relaxed minds choose better. Another move is to separate scarcity from value. Scarcity is a tactic. Value is a truth. If a course, a contract, or a relationship is truly good for you, it will still be good tomorrow. The loss frame says, this is your last chance. Your wiser voice says, good things withstand one night of sleep. Draw a boundary right there. If they push harder, that pressure is data. Real care does not threaten. Real leadership does not corner. Real opportunity does not need a trap door. You can also call it gently, without theatrics. You're framing this as what I'll lose, not what I'll gain. I want to understand the actual benefits. That sentence is a light switch. It exposes the architecture. And when the room is lit, you can see if there's anything worth staying for. If they keep steering you back to danger, imagine yourself leaving with your dignity intact, because that is the one loss you never want to trade away for a promise. In the end, all influence is a story about the future. The most disturbing tricks are stories that delete your choices and leave you guarding an empty throne. Resist by restoring choices to the scene. Slow the clock. Add a second picture. Ask for real value. Then walk toward the future you actually want, not the one someone else is shrinking to fit their agenda. You cannot always stop people from using the loss frame, but you can refuse to live inside it. And that shift, naming the frame, widening the lens, and choosing from calm, turns a trap into a doorway you walk through on your own terms. A stranger drifts into your orbit and, without meaning to, you breathe when they breathe. Your shoulders soften when theirs soften. Their words feel like your thoughts, only a split second ahead. That is not coincidence. That is pacing and leading, a quiet remote control for human rhythm. Pacing begins with matching what is undeniably true. The manipulator stacks simple realities like bricks. You are standing here. It is a warm evening. You are holding your phone. Each statement lands and your mind nods along. Yes, yes, yes. While they speak, their posture mirrors yours. Their blink rate settles into your tempo. Their tone sits right inside your comfort zone. They echo your sensory world. If you say it looks off, they say it looks off. If you say it sounds wrong, they say it sounds wrong. It feels like connection, but it is calibration. Once you are in sync, the shift happens. The lead. After enough yeses, the next sentence slips from observation into suggestion. You could step over here. You might want to try this. We should talk by the window. It does not feel like a command. It feels like the next obvious thing in a chain of harmless truths. Your body, already synchronized, flows forward. In sales, a smooth operator will pace your experience before presenting the offer. They notice the line is long, the music is loud, the coffee is strong. They lightly mirror your stance. Then they lead with a higher tier, a limited window, a now or never nudge carried on familiar rhythm. In cult recruitment, a recruiter mirrors your language about feeling lost or misunderstood. They pace your sense of confusion, then lead with the first small commitment. Just join for one evening. Just read this. Just meet the group. Those small yeses become rails that guide the bigger ones. The disturbing part is how invisible it can be. You will not feel pushed. You will feel accompanied. You will feel seen. When it is done expertly, the lead is timed right at the moment your nervous system has relaxed into the pace, like a dance partner steering you around a corner you did not plan to take. Watch for the telltales. A run of obvious truths followed by a suggestion that benefits them more than you. A person who always seems to share your opinion, your tempo, your emotion, even when it shifts quickly, your own urge to keep agreeing just to protect the harmony. Notice if the other person never risks a disagreement until you are nodding like a metronome. Breaking the spell is about breaking the rhythm. Change your posture. Look away. Slow your breath if they are fast, or speed up if they are slow. Drop a non sequitur that does not fit the pattern. Ask for time. Repeat their suggestion back in your words and let it sit in silence. Rhythm thrives on momentum. Boundaries thrive on pauses. There is an ethical version of pacing and leading that happens in therapy, caregiving, and teaching. A good practitioner meets you where you are, matches your reality, then invites you toward a healthier state with your consent. The difference is consent and outcome. If the technique respects your agency and serves your goals, it is guidance. If it bypasses your agency and serves someone else's goals, it is control. When the room feels warm with rapport, remember that warmth can be engineered. If your yes is building a staircase you did not choose, step sideways. The spell depends on sequence, on the hypnotic drumbeat of agreement. Miss a beat on purpose. Put a name to what is happening, even privately. This person is pacing me, and now they are trying to lead. Naming it snaps the thread. Your rhythm is yours. Your breath is yours. Anyone can match it for a moment. The danger begins when you stop feeling the difference between your cadence and theirs. Keep a sliver of attention tuned to that difference, and you will feel the tug when a suggestion arrives riding on the back of all your yeses. That tiny tug is your cue. Pause, reclaim the beat. Then decide where you want to go, and let your own steps lead. The fastest way to steal your choices isn't to tie your hands. It's to set the room on fire. Not a real fire, but a manufactured rush. Blinking countdowns, ringing phones, raised voices, last chance offers. When your pulse sprints, your mind gets shoved into a narrow hallway where the only visible door is the one they want you to take. That hallway is the urgency trap. The trap thrives on noise. A flashing timer that says only minutes left. A message that says your account will be deleted unless you click now. A salesperson who layers scarcity over flattery. A boss who pings near the end of the day with a do this immediately that skips all context. When the clock screams, the brain listens. It cuts corners, accepts first answers, and borrows certainty from whoever sounds the most confident. This is why urgency is the favorite costume of schemes, both small and sinister. Phishing emails lean on it. High-pressure sales hide inside it. Even manipulative relationships use it, turning every discussion into a crisis so you never have space to think. The trick works because urgency pretends to be a fact when it is really a feeling, and feelings are fast. Notice what happens to your thinking under that siren. Options collapse. You stop asking what if and start asking how fast. You trade questions for actions. You ignore the quiet signals, contradictions, missing details, the ache that says something here is off, because you've been told there is no time to listen to them. Here's the twist. The faster someone needs you to decide, the more likely the decision profits them, not you. Real opportunities can handle a pause. Real emergencies make space for verification. Real leaders give you context with the call to action. The rest want your speed because your speed is their cover. So, how do you step out of the hallway? First, interrupt your physiology. Take 3 slow breaths and plant your feet. You are not wasting time, you are buying clarity. Next, name the tactic out loud, even if only to yourself. Someone is trying to rush me. Naming breaks the spell. Now, buy yourself a boundary. Say, I decide after I understand. If they push, say, if it truly can't wait, I need a concise explanation and a way to verify. If they still push, that is your answer. Pressure that refuses light is not a situation. It is a setup. Ask better questions. What happens if I do nothing for the next day? Who benefits if I move at their speed? What specific harm comes from me checking with a trusted person? The urgency trap hates witnesses. Bring one in. Call a colleague. Forward the email to your security team. Ask the salesperson to send terms in writing so you can review. Truth survives paper. Change the playing field. Move the conversation from their channel to yours. If someone cold calls, hang up and dial the official number on the company's website. If a pop-up demands a click, close the browser and log in independently. If a superior insists on instant action, request clear priorities in writing and a brief outline of stakes. When they control the clock, they control you. When you control the clock, you control the choice. Build a default rule for yourself. I do not make binding decisions on the timeline of a stranger. I do not surrender credentials, money, or major commitments without sleeping on it. I do not respond to alarms until I verify the fire. You are not being difficult. You are being deliberate. Remember, scarcity can be staged, deadlines can be invented, and rush can be rehearsed. But your attention is not an emergency service. Treat it like a vault, not a vending machine. If someone throws a countdown at your feet, watch how the numbers try to shrink your world. You can let them. Or you can step back and let the clock run down without running you down. Pause. Verify. Decide on your terms. Urgency is loud, but power is quiet. Choose quiet. The strangest part about obedience is how it begins with fabric, a jacket with patches, a lanyard with a logo, a polished nameplate resting on a desk, and suddenly voice is lower, posture straightens, and people hand over their choices without realizing they just did. That's the authority badge. Not just a badge you can touch, but a feeling you can wear. A manipulator knows that symbols do the heavy lifting. They do not need to argue. They need only to look like the person who cannot be argued with. The uniform can be literal, like security blues, or a lab coat white as a blank verdict. It can be social, like a title before a name, or a cluster of framed certificates on a wall you do not have time to read. It can even be tonal, clipped sentences, a calm that dares you to be the first one to sound anxious. When the room believes, the resistance arrives late. Watch how it starts small. The badge shows up alongside a small request. Sign here. Stand there. Just a moment of compliance while the real ask warms up. The trick works because our minds love shortcuts. If this person looks official, it must be official to obey. If everyone else is nodding, it must be safe to nod too. Pressure is outsourced. Risk feels delegated. The authority badge is less about power and more about permission. And once you give it once, the next yes comes easier. They will stack symbols when the stakes get higher. A borrowed office, a fresh acronym, a printed sticker that says visitor. They will sprinkle jargon like fairy dust. Policy requires, standard protocol, best practice. Those phrases are fog machines. While you are busy squinting through the mist, the path forward gets laid out for you. The choices are framed as what is allowed, not what you want. You stop asking, is this right for me? And start asking, am I allowed to do anything else? Another layer is urgency. Your access will lapse. We need this now. Others have already complied. A countdown can make any badge glow brighter because fear loves a deadline. When time is short, symbols stand in for certainty. The con is not in the costume. It is in your rush to accept the costume's promise. And notice the choreography. Authority rarely shouts. It posts a sign. It holds the door and then gestures you through. It thanks you in advance. It plays host. The more courteous the performance, the harder it becomes to step out of it without looking rude. This is social glue turned into a trap. You comply to stay polite, then to stay consistent, then to avoid conflict. And then you have complied so much that it feels like the only honest thing left to do. Breaking the spell begins with a pause, not a fight, not a scene. A pause long enough to let your own voice catch up. If the badge is real, it can withstand questions. What exactly are you asking me to do? What happens if I decline? Who is accountable if this goes wrong? A true authority explains and documents. A manipulator insists and deflects. You do not need a confrontation to test the difference. You need a moment of calm curiosity. Separate the symbol from the instruction. If the uniform disappeared, would the request still make sense? If the title were removed, would the claim still be credible? If the answer feels like no, you are not resisting the person. You are protecting the process. Real expertise invites verification. It does not demand it be skipped. Create allies in the room. Even one other voice can reset the gravity. Say, I want a second opinion. Say, let's check the policy together. Authority shrinks when it must share the light. If you are alone, use time as your ally. I will decide after a short break. A manipulator needs your momentum. A pause robs them of it. Remember that consent is not a one-time signature. It is renewable, revocable, and yours. The authority badge will keep trying to make it theirs. That is the disturbing part. It does not need to control your mind if it can control your context. It will dress the context in symbols until your mind surrenders by habit. So, keep your eyes on the ask, not the outfit. Keep your questions slow and your boundaries plain. There is no symbol so shiny that it outranks your right to understand. No badge is higher than your decision to stop, to think, to choose. The sharpest knives are wrapped in velvet. They arrive as praise, shine like approval, and cut before you realize you are bleeding. That is the Trojan Compliment. Flattery with a hidden payload. A smiling delivery system for a command. A rewrite of your choices. Or a quiet little guilt trip that makes no sound until you have already agreed. Here is how it sneaks in. First, the sweet coding. They mirror you, admire you, name something you value about yourself. Reliable, kind, smart, independent. It lands warm. Your guard drops. Then comes the hinge word, so, which is why, because of that. And on the other side of that hinge is the payload. You are the kind of person who will do this for me. You are too smart to ask questions. You are so chill you will let me slide. You care about quality, so take the premium. The compliment becomes a leash tied to your identity. Listen to the pattern. You are my most reliable person. So I knew you would handle the weekend shift. I love how understanding you are, which is why you will not make a big deal about me canceling. You seem like someone who appreciates quality, so the top tier is clearly for you. I respect how independent you are. You do not need anyone's help, right? Each one seems kind until you notice it shrinks your options to one obedient path. Why does it work? Because our brains crave consistency. When someone strokes the identity we like, we want to act in a way that keeps that image. It also taps reciprocity. You compliment me. I feel pressure to give something back. And it plays on social desirability. No one wants to look small, petty, cheap, insecure, unreliable. The Trojan Compliment wraps its ask in a threat to those fears. Say no, and you are not who you thought you were. Spotting it starts with the hinge. If the praise is followed by a subtle therefore, it might be a trap. Try the end test. If you stop the sentence before the hinge, does it still feel kind with no strings? You are reliable, full stop. You are understanding, full stop. If it cannot end there without twisting your arm, that is not a compliment. That is a key in your lock. Defusing it is about separating the velvet from the blade. First, take the praise at face value without accepting the leash. Thank you for seeing that I am reliable. Now talk about the request as a standalone. I am not available this weekend. You can also name the move out loud in neutral language. I hear a compliment with an assumption. Being understanding does not mean I am okay with being canceled on last minute, or reframe the identity so it supports your boundary. Because I value quality, I take time to decide. Since I am reliable, I do not commit when I cannot deliver. If you like questions, ask one. What exactly are you asking? Silence is a powerful disinfectant. Let them put the request in the light where you can see it. You can even preempt the trick. Keep phrases ready that break the spell without drama. I appreciate the compliment. My decision is separate. That is kind, and I will still say no. Thanks. Not this time. Say them calmly. You do not owe a monologue to justify your boundary. Notice also the reverse Trojan, the soft insult that smuggles control. You are not like those people who need guarantees, right? You are not one of those friends who makes me explain myself. That is bait. You do not have to prove you are above basic respect. A clear boundary is not immaturity. A pause is not weakness. Asking for clarity is not paranoia. If you catch yourself using Trojan compliments, it is a chance to clean up your asks. Say what you want without dressing it in flattery armor. People feel safer around honesty than around hidden blades. You will get fewer yeses perhaps, but you will get truer ones. Real compliments do not shepherd you anywhere. They let you stand where you are. Real requests do not need costumes. They can walk in the front door, announce themselves, and accept a no. When praise shows up pulling a leash, smile, untie the knot, and hand it back. Let the Trojan stay at the gate. The moment before you drift off, your mind opens a quiet door. The lights of the day dim, thoughts turn soft at the edges, and the guard at the gate steps away. This is where sleep suggestion lives, slipping in like a shadow that knows your name. It does not roar, it hums, it does not argue, it repeats. A phrase you saw again and again before bed. A voice you trust whispering the same gentle line. A tone folded into white noise. A smell that arrives just as your eyes flutter shut. When you are half awake and half dreaming, your brain shelves new ideas without asking many questions. Later, when morning comes, those ideas feel like yours. Imagine a friend who always sends a certain message late at night. Not quite a command, just a nudge wrapped in care. Imagine a favorite song that starts showing up in the last moments before you sleep. A chorus with one idea at its heart. Imagine a soft lamp that warms the room the same way every evening, tied to one feeling. None of these feel like pressure. They feel familiar. That is the point. Sleep suggestion works because the edge of sleep is a sticky place. Your attention is loose. Your inner voice is louder than the world. and your memory is deciding what to keep. If the same simple idea lands there again and again, it can sink in. In the morning, you may feel a pull and not know why. You may reach for a product you never cared about. You may agree to a plan you did not want. The thought arrives already dressed in your voice, and it is hard to tell it came from somewhere else. The most unsettling part is how polite it looks. There is no shout, no fight, no clear line crossed. A partner who insists on a bedtime story with the same theme. A colleague who loves sending one last reminder as you yawn. A device that chirps with a calm phrase while you set the alarm. Each piece seems harmless on its own. Together, they braid into a path that leads you where someone else wants you to go. You might think you would notice, but in those near-sleep moments, the mind does not check ID. It recognizes rhythm, comfort, and repetition. If a word is paired with warmth enough times, the word becomes warm. If a phrase rides in on calm music, the phrase becomes calm. Later, a small trigger, a color, a tone, a scent, can light up the whole chain. You feel moved, and you move. So what do you watch for? Watch for patterns that only show up at night. Watch for phrases that feel like home without earning it. Watch for urgency that arrives tucked into lullabies. If you wake with a new desire that appeared from nowhere, write it down before you act on it. Ask where you first heard it. If the answer is fuzzy, wait. True needs can wait till breakfast. Protect your threshold. Give your last moments before sleep back to yourself. Choose words that are yours and repeat them softly. Keep late messages on silent and let them wait. If you love sound, pick sounds with no agenda. If you love scent, change it often so no single smell becomes a leash. Create a small ritual that marks the door. A page of a book, a slow breath, a light you turn off with intention. Train your mind to link that door to your own voice. And if someone gets upset when you move their messages earlier, when you pause a nightly call, when you switch routines, listen to that reaction. Honest care adapts, control complains. Your sleep is not a weakness. It is a workshop where your mind rebuilds you. Guard the entrance like it matters, because it does. Let quiet be quiet. Let the day end on your terms. When morning comes, you will know the difference between a thought that chose you and a thought that you chose.